Hi, Jeff. I'm in the room with you. This is Jamie.
Hey there. Sorry, I was on mute.
That's okay.
Let's see. Trying to multitask and find, I need to find Google Drive to open the slides.
You put my slides on Google Drive?
Uh-huh.
Okay. Jason and I on Monday night worked together, and I actually showed them from my own computer if we need to.
Okay.
But I'd rather you do them if that would be okay.
Okay, sure.
I just didn't know if you wanted to stay the whole time.
Well, I'll at least stay until Jason's on, but I should be here the whole time.
All righty.
Okay, so we are lectures. I could have sworn I put them on Google Drive. Uh-oh. Gosh, I logged in on Monday night. I had it all ready to go.
Yeah, it was funny because Barney came to dinner on Monday night, and afterwards I got on, and there was Jason's picture. I logged into the website, and Jason was fooling around, but I could see his picture.
Oh, that's hilarious. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
He's probably using the webcam.
Yep, and then so he switched me over to being a presenter,
Okay.
and it worked okay. So if that's what you need, that's fine. The only thing is I don't have a lot of experience with it, so.
Well, that's okay. We may have to, because for some reason I'm having trouble finding him. I know I put him in here. Let's do a search. There's that. Where's your... it's got to be this one, right? There we go. So yeah. Oh. I wonder if I added them to my personal Google Drive. You know what we'll do? I may have to just do them... let's see if this works.
You can do them off your desktop. The other thing is I don't know if you remember there on slide or on presentation chapter 7, there's 2 YouTube videos.
There's what?
There's 2 YouTube videos.
Oh, I'm picking up some background noise.
I don't think it's me.
No, it's somebody else. Wait, but if I mute everybody, then I won't hear you. You're hearing
anyway.
what? Or you're seeing what?
When we go to chapter 7, at the beginning of chapter 7 and at the end, there's 2 YouTube videos,
okay.
but they don't take very long to pull up. I actually still have them pulled up.
Okay. Well, I'm hearing a lot of beeps.
There's an anonymous person. I wonder who's anonymous.
See what we got so far. I see Noel, anonymous, 575.
That second telephone number is my home phone number.
Yeah, probably 2 of these are me. Oh, OECS ASP is me.
Jeff?
Yep.
That's Kurt.
There you go.
Hey, Jeff, it's Jenny. I'm here.
Okay. Let me, ooh, I just dropped my phone. I forgot that it was not attached to me. Let me, because it's not as easy to do on here. I'm using my laptop so that I can be portable. I'm just going to log on my computer real quick, and then we'll take a quick roll call. And by the way, don't get nervous about it. It's not required at all. I just like to know. And, you know, like if that was the reason for me sending out the email earlier today. You know, if I don't hear from somebody for a while, I just want to be able to check in and say, hey, are you still planning on taking the course? And, you know, if not, then it's all right. We'll just, you know, I need to plan how many instructors we need for tests and stuff. So anyway, okay, so let me see. So I see Kurt. Gosh, did I add Kurt to the list? I probably didn't yet. So let's
From Texas.
How did you know?
He's down at the bottom. He's the last name on the list there.
Yeah, I see. I got.
Hi, Van. How are you?
Oh, I see what you're saying. I was. How do you see my list?
You go up to the top. There's like a
no, I know.
list.
It's on another computer. I'm looking at I have an attendance list.
Oh, okay.
You scared me for a minute. I was like, oh my God, how can you see that?
Well, it was funny because on Monday when I was working with Jason, I actually could see his desktop computer, which was funny because it was like, ooh, well, that would be a nice way to share.
You should be able to.
Right
like
now,
I can share my whole. Really?
It says paused.
Oh,
the meeting.
I'm paused?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'm sorry. There we go.
Now you're unpaused.
That would help. And then let me switch back to...
Now I can see your desktop. What is that desktop? Apple? Are you an Apple
Oh, no,
guy?
that's Android.
Oh, Android.
How dare you?
Oh, I apologize. I'm lucky I can turn the computer on.
I have an Android tablet that I use. I've used it now. I used it for all the instructor sessions, and it's actually pretty good. Okay, so I've got everybody in the list now, so let's see. Oops, I needed to be back here. Let me just get a quick attendance, and then we'll get underway. So, Jason doesn't count. Noelle, let me get you.
Okay.
You know what we didn't do in that first session was I didn't have all the candidates introduce themselves, so maybe while I'm getting that, if you just want to go in order, starting with Noelle, and introduce yourself and what you do and why you want to be on patrol, and we'll get going.
I'm Noelle Beachy, and I live in Ruidoso, and I've skied my whole life, and looking for something new to do.
Ski patrol make it interesting again.
Yeah.
The next number is mine. I'm Jamie Kroll. I'll be one of your presenters today, and I've been on Ski Apache Ski Patrol for 3 years, but this is my 51st year of skiing.
Well,
I know, I'm old.
Got me beat. Who's 830?
That's probably Kurt.
Oh, okay, gotcha. How about 512?
Hi, this is Van Bennett. I'm one of the candidates. Hey, how are you? Good. I'm one of the candidate instructors this year. It's my 6th year on patrol with about a 15-year gap in between year 5 and year 6. So this is my first year. I just completed my first year back at Ski Apache. So on the patrol. Thanks for having me.
I guess I'll go. Kurt Schlinegger. I actually live in Kerrville near San Antonio. I work in Pecos. We have a couple of hotels here. Skied my entire life in Ruidoso. We've had businesses up there off and on since the 70s, and I'm just excited to start this new adventure.
Who is 970?
That's me. This is Jenny. I'm.
Oh, okay.
And
Gotcha.
I'm not on patrol. I'm a ski school person, and I've been teaching in that
We
world
forgive you.
forever. I know.
You have to put up with Jimmy Mitchell, right?
Oh yes. You gotta love the jokes. Anyhow, I've been in a lot of different places teaching. I've been teaching since I was 14. I grew up here. I'm back, and Fred told me this winter, you better take this course, and so I am.
That's great. Now you get to learn to side slip all the time.
We do a lot of that teaching anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Who's next? We get everybody?
There's an anonymous person in there. It looks like their number's blocked. I'm not sure who that is.
So no Nicholas? Cody? I got Jenny. How about Brandon? Jake?
Oh, I think the anonymous is me. My bad.
Oh.
I didn't introduce myself. I'm Trace Suter. I go to UT, and I've been skiing with the patrol for the past few years. So
that's great.
Wonderful.
And he's friends with Nate. So
very
we
good.
Forgive him for that.
Oh, we'll take him. Except that he goes to UT, and my boys went to U, but that's okay.
Those are the people that wear like like purple, right? Just kidding.
Oh.
Uh-huh. Just a different color orange.
Yeah. Let's see. I didn't hear Jake. How about Brian? Keith? Katie? Avelino? I got Trace. Jesse? Or Scott? Woody? How about Woody said he was going to try to just listen to recordings. I think he's pretty remote. Travis?
Present.
Aha. I don't think we got you. So give us the 30-second version of yourself.
I am Travis Phibbs. I'm originally from Knoxville, Tennessee. I moved out to Roswell, New Mexico for work. I work in the oil fields. And I am looking forward to doing ski patrol on the weekends. Pretty excited.
Yeah, cool. Is it Elena?
Yeah.
I hear you.
Yeah.
I thought that's how you pronounced it. And then no Michael, right? All right, I got everybody. So, unless there's any follow-ups from last time, I'll take that as a no. So I'll turn it over to Jamie and just do like the old-time film strips, and you can either beep or say, flip it or whatever.
All right. Thank you, Jeff. Well, hi, everybody. You could tell from our introductions, I'm pretty new to the patrol, but I think they chose me because I was new to teach these first 5 chapters. These first 5 chapters are about rescue basics. And unless you're a medical professional already, an EMT or something like that, a doctor, a nurse, a lot of times these basics are what you're going to fall back on when you're in a stressful situation. And I have found myself there going, oh, my goodness, what am I supposed to do? And so although I'm not going to go through every part of the chapter, and certainly you need to read them, Van and I and Jason did this program recently, and the fact is it's probably one of the most challenging programs that I've ever done. So, and it's important because you're dealing with people's lives. So I'm not going to go through all of the chapters, but one thing I want to tell you is that I'm going to facilitate today. I'm not going to teach, and that means that I really am hoping that you'll take your phones off of mute and go right ahead and ask me some questions or answer my questions, because I find that a better way of learning than just like death by PowerPoint. Okay, so on this first slide, I do like a little bit of humor. You're going to see that we actually see those people at Ski Apache. If you've skied at Ski Apache for a while, you know that actually our patrol is very, very busy compared to a lot of Colorado ones, simply because we have a lot of people who are first-time skiers or they've come up from Mexico, and so even language can be a barrier. So understanding the basics and using them consistently is probably what makes us a very successful patrol. A lot of the basics include things like, should I keep myself in shape? You being in shape is going to help other people help you, or you being in shape will help you help other people. So that's really important. Do you know how to layer your clothes? I mean, those seem like insignificant things, but I will tell you that some of those things are the things that will help you, once again, help other people. So please, while we're going through these, make sure and take care of yourself, mentally and physically.
I was going to add to that, Jamie, is word to the wise is bring your layers with you on patrol, because if you're working a scene, you're out there, you're stuck, you can't run back to the patrol room and grab an extra layer.
Absolutely. Now, that will bring us to another slide when we talk about how much equipment you can carry. You're going to have to carry medical equipment, but you're going to need to carry your own survival equipment, things like water and things. So it really depends on what kind of shape you're in, how much you can carry, what kind of equipment you're using to carry that. So these are all things that go into these very, very simple things about basics. But once again, we are a busy patrol, sometimes busier than Colorado patrols. So we're going to go on and learn some of the basics. Next slide, Jeff. Thank you. All right. So the next slide is about being prepared to work outside. So obviously we've talked about physical health. I mean, some of the stressors of being outside, hydration, sunscreen, those are kind of basic things to people. But I will tell you that a lot of the people we see in the morning or about noontime are people that literally are dehydrated. They come in, they're not feeling good. So if they're dehydrated, chances are you're dehydrated. So that is a really important thing when you're talking about the patroller's health. The other thing about patrollers' health is mental health. I don't know if you work in a stressful situation. I work in basically like in a college environment, and some days everybody is just grumpy. But I will tell you, we always feel better when we're able to discuss things that happen in the workplace. And I think you'll find that that's going to carry over to the patroller's health. So here's the thing. If you feel like you need to talk about a case that you just worked, where's the right place to talk about that? Well, is it the patrol room? Well, sure it is. But remember that there might be patients right next door, getting advice from other people. So part of your health, besides your physical, is your mental health. You may, I know that this has never happened to me, but other patrollers have had very harrowing experiences with people that have died on the slopes. And me listening to their stories, I think, does prepare me. So I think that's part of, being on patrol, sharing and learning from the other patrollers. Then it goes to proper equipment. I did write on my slide that there are NSPS good deals. Hey, wow. Yeah, you can get great equipment through the National Ski Patrol magazine once you're become a member. And these are really great things. But the really important thing at Ski Apache is that we do require that you have your skis checked by the personnel there to make sure your bindings are set correctly and everything like that. So if you have a board or a ski, you're going to need to bring those with you the first time you're on patrol, or before then, so that they can be checked. The extra layers, obviously, we have all these new high-tech equipment, and like other people have said, the most important thing is you do need to keep extra clothing in your locker. And I will tell you, this may sound funny, but one of my last patients, actually my last patient last year, urinated on me. And I was not prepared for that, but the fact was is I needed to change my clothes to protect everybody else, and so I did have extra clothing. Helmets at Ski Apache, gosh, people say, helmets? Are you kidding me? Really? No thanks. Well, quite frankly, I can't believe that anybody would say that these days. The helmets are amazing pieces of equipment. They're so comfortable. They're lightweight. And unfortunately, fortunately, they're mandatory at Ski Apache next year. So if you are not wearing a helmet, I do recommend that you purchase one. And so the last thing is carrying your medical supplies. Proper equipment, keeping your vest up, knowing where your things are in your vest or whatever you carry, backpacks. We have lots of people who carry different things. You can get most of your supplies on the hill, but it's amazing how people supplement their supplies with things that they like. Those won't always be on the mountain, so do know that you'll either use what we have, or you can start deciding what's good for you. And then the last thing is your radio, and we do have 24 radios that you can check out when you come into the center. A lot of people have their own radios, and that is tremendous. They actually can start picking up transmissions all the way down the mountain, and I think that's great. I will tell you that the radio is the only thing that if you lose, you will have to buy at Ski Apache. So please take care of it, because I unfortunately have lost my radio on the mountain twice now, found by other patrollers who have punished me by making me purchase beverages of their choice. So please, please take care of your equipment, take care of yourself, both mentally and physically. All right, so next slide.
All right, and we can talk offline about if you want to purchase your own radio down the road. I can help you select one and get it programmed.
That would be great. Actually, I want to do that.
It's about $30 on Amazon.
Wonderful. Honestly, it does help to have your own radio, especially on a busy day. All right, so now we're actually getting into the nuts and bolts of the basic things on the ski patrol. And probably the first one is scene safe. Is this scene safe for you to enter? I think that if you watch any kind of Law and Order or CSI or something, you will always see those people, get a vector from another person, like a cop or somebody who's going to say, yeah, come on in, the perp's gone or something like that. But you may not have that luxury. You may be the first person on the scene, and you have to be paying attention to the safety there. So on the hill, can somebody tell me what they would think perhaps a thing that might affect safety would be? Anybody?
How about a charged airline?
An airline?
Yeah, one that's charged, to like, I don't know, what are they at, like 2,000 PSI?
Oh, right. Yes, that would definitely. So if we had a tank full of oxygen and you're in the patrol room and it tipped over, do you think that might become a weapon? Anybody else think of anything? How about if you go on a rescue, somebody is below the top of a lip of a mountain? And can anybody else think, besides weather and accident location, what's another hazard?
Other
skiers? So perhaps with other skiers, you might want to say, hey, sir, can you stop and make sure that anybody coming over the top of this mountain slows down or avoids us? So The first thing you need to evaluate is your scene safety. Is it safe for you? Is it safe for the person you're rescuing? Is it safe for other patrollers? Because everybody, if you're the first person on the scene, they're going to be evaluating that. So every single time your scene must be safe. All right, so in the first aid room, hazards. I will tell you, we laugh about those oxygen tanks, but I will tell you, if one falls and knocks off the top, you have a projectile. That thing is going to scream across any room and hurt anybody in its path. So please, please pay attention even to safety in the patrol rooms. Sharps containers. Does everybody know what a Sharps container is for? Anybody?
Putting needles.
Needles.
Absolutely. Okay, so are you going to use needles? Well, I'll tell you, the first chapter, the 5 chapters that I'm teaching, we're not going to really talk about actual medical care, but there are things that are sharp and are used in our patrol room that you may have to put in a Sharps container. So when we get up on the mountain, we'll show those to you. And I will tell you that when I finished my EMT training, at my evaluation, I put a needle all the way through my thumb. And although it hadn't been contaminated with anyone, if anything like that ever happens to you, you need to let someone else in the patrol room know. It doesn't matter that you're a volunteer. It means that we may need to adjust our approach to something, change something. So don't keep things that you think are safety hazards to yourself. All right. Other places in the lodge, what is a thing that could be a scene safety issue? In the kitchen area, for example. If you all have eaten there, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Hot grease.
Hot grease. Slippery
Absolutely.
floors.
Slippery.
Jovian's office.
Jovian, yes. I wrote angry patrons because, quite frankly, occasionally we do meet someone who is intoxicated or using other products that may alter their mental status. And so all of these things may affect your safety. So I've spent a little time on this, but I think it's because it's probably the most important thing to keep you safe. So you approach the scene and you're assessing this. What are you going to assess before you even touch the person? Obviously, we just talked about the scene safety. So then you're going to look at them and go, wow, that person's leg is like on the side of his body and it's like turned 45 degrees. I wonder what happened. So those are things called the nature of the injury, or NOI. Or the person walks in and they can't talk, or that was mechanism of injury. And the other one is the nature of the illness. Thank you. Sorry about that. And the person can't talk to you because they're slurring their speech. So the fact is that when you're walking up to somebody, you're going to be assessing them even before you touch them. You may have to determine if you have more than one patient, because if you do, what are you going to need? Additional resources. So if you're sitting on the slope, what might be an additional resource that you might have to call for? Anybody?
Whiskey.
Whiskey. Thank you. I like you. But how about oxygen?
Backboard, toboggan.
Yep, you may need. Yep. How about helicopter? Very. Oh, Jeff, sorry, we timed out there. So all of those are things that you're going to do even before you touch the person. So the next slide is the end of this chapter, which is the skill we're going to practice when we see each other on the 3rd, which is personal protective equipment. You'll hear people call it PPE, but it's also called BSI. So if someone says PPE or BSI, those two things are synonymous with each other, okay? And I think the important thing about gloves is, What's the difference between a ski glove and a rubber glove? Because I've seen people touch people with ski gloves and not give it a second thought. Anybody? Is your ski glove going to protect you?
No.
No. I was watching a ski patrol video. I'm sure you all will watch them too. And the person took off their ski gloves, and they had rubber gloves underneath. Okay? Mm-hmm. I personally have never done that. I can't even imagine doing that. Does that even sound comfortable?
No.
I've done it when it's real cold.
Have you really?
Yeah.
Well, I've never done that before, but I'll be honest with you. The first thing that I pull out of my pack or my pocket, depending on which uniform I'm wearing, is my rubber gloves. Mm-hmm. So never assume that your patient is safe, ever. And the reality of that is you may even need something else. So on the hill, if you needed glasses, so what would be a reason that you might need glasses?
Just spitting out blood.
Yep.
Coughing.
The person's vomiting. So remember, on the hill, your goggles are a great source of glasses. Don't take them off just so you can look the person in the eye. If you need to leave them on, you can say that to them. And I think that's kind of the most important thing. You need to protect yourself. And I will tell you that when we do the assessment for your final test, if you forget this one thing, I guarantee you will be taking your test again.
Yep. BSI it's a critical performance indicator in every single scenario. And so I would have your gloves on before you even walk into the testing room.
Absolutely. So some things that I didn't cover from this chapter include regulating your body temperature, things like wearing the proper clothing, understanding that you may come upon someone who's super cold, things like that. They seem like no-brainers, but would you give somebody your gloves because their gloves were lost or their hands were cold? Remember, it's all about you. You got to keep yourself healthy and safe so that you can help them. So think twice before you kind of give away your stuff. We're trying to keep the patient in a stable or homeostatic condition, but the reality is you have to do it for yourself also. So from this chapter, we'll be doing 3-1, which we'll be putting on gloves when I see you on the 3rd. I hope I see you on the 3rd. I'll be there. Anyway, so Jeff, how about the next chapter, chapter 5?
Okay. And just as a preview, well, why change it?
Mm-hmm.
Why won't it change? Oh, is it the next set?
The next set, chapter 5.
Oh, okay. So that's why I can't change the slide. Come on.
That's okay. The next slide set on Chapter 5 is about moving and lifting patients. And I will tell you, when I took this course, this was presented later on. So I'm going to kind of gloss over a lot of these things because, first of all, you need to practice them. But secondly, a lot of these things, the different type of lifts, how you carry somebody, is going to be based on their injury. So a person going to teach you about thoracic injuries is going to actually tell you which one of these lifts you should be using. Okay, does that make sense to everybody? It's not just, hey, I'm going to move this person. And sometimes it might be, but the fact is that it is important that you use the right lift at the right time for the right patient. So we're going to just go through this quickly about the different kinds. Please stop me and ask me if any questions that you might have. Okay, next slide on Chapter 5. Okay, the next slide on Chapter 5 is about body mechanics. I'm sure that you've been in the gym or someplace and you've watched people lift weights, and their back is bowed, and they're bending from their waist. These people are a backache waiting to happen. For myself, on a personal note, I have actually broken my back. I was hit by a snowboarder twice. I've had 2 back surgeries. It's not because I'm old, but the fact is that your back is a very important part of you staying up on those slopes. So I've given you kind of a list of things that are important for lifting. And they seem rather, obvious, but the reality of a lift is you're going to be working with someone else. Rarely are you going to be lifting by yourself, and you never want to drop a patient. I'm going to probably say that more than once. So things to consider on the lift is who's in charge of the lift? Can the patient help me move them? When moving a patient, even in the patrol room, you're going to be moving patients either from beds, chairs, to wheelchairs, to ambulances, and all of these things are really important. That you lift with your knees, that you're looking at the person who's helping you lift so that the communication is there. All of those things are really, really important. That you not turn with your back with a lift, you actually move your feet. So we're going to kind of look at some lifts really quickly. If you have any questions about them, please stop me. I mean, the bottom line is we never want to drop a patient. And if you and I mean, I'm a short woman. I'm somewhat strong, but not super strong. Which end of the body should I be lifting? Does anybody have an answer to that right off the top of their head? Which part of the body should I be lifting because I'm not as strong as the guy standing across from me?
Under the shoulders.
Well, so if the person was on the backboard, I would be wanting to lift the feet.
You want the feet end, yes.
Right,
Smaller person at the feet.
Exactly. So next slide, Jeff. So here are two patrollers that are going to be lifting together. So what's some of the good things that they are doing? First of all, look at their faces. They are looking at each other, right? So they can see what the other person is doing. Who's in charge of this lift? Can anybody tell me? How about you, Van? Who's in charge of this lift?
The person that was on scene first. Or the person at the head.
The person at the head. That person is in charge of this lift. So even if the other guy was the guy that was on the scene first, the guy at the feet is not determining this lift. It is the person at the head, and that is important because somebody needs to make the commands. So what are these guys doing right? They're lifting with their legs. Look at their legs. Their weight is over their knees. They're lifting with their legs. They're reaching out in front of them. All of these are really great things to keep you from having a back injury. All right, so next slide. All right, so here's the same patrollers who have had a brain fart. What are they doing wrong? Well, the first thing that they're doing right, I always try to start with the positive, is that they're actually lifting the person with a backboard. So one thing that they're not doing right is, where's the sled? They're going to lift this person up, and where are they going to take him to? I don't know. I mean, they're going to lift him, and they're going to hold him there for a while. Let me tell you something. We occasionally have some 250-pound or 300-pound gentlemen that come into the patrol room. This is not the time to just lift somebody and not have any place to go. So preparation is good. The gentleman on the left, he doesn't even have one of his feet securely on the ground. They're not looking at each other. So there is an awful lot wrong with this picture, and these people are probably looking to hurt themselves. All right, so next slide. Back to the guys before. Here they are. Now, these gentlemen, they're going to lift the person, and they're looking at each other. Their form is great, and they're going to put them in the sled. So does anybody have an idea what the guy who is on the right side is going to do? How is he going to lift this person into the sled when he has to walk over the sled? Anybody? Jeff, can you help me out with that?
Sorry, I'm on mute.
That's okay. What's that guy on the right side going to do? How is he going to get that person into the sled? Is he going to step on the sled? Is it okay to step on the sled?
You don't really want to step on the sled because it could move. It's a mobile object. So if I were him, I would step in between the handles, and then that probably would give you enough angle. You could lower him straight down into the sled.
Well, thank you, because I was thinking of that question. It's like, well, what's that guy going to do? I really appreciate that you telling us.
You know what would be better? And this is sled training instead, but it would be better if they didn't have the handles locked, because then they'd be flat on the snow and they'd be anchoring the sled so it doesn't move. But
oh, very, very good. That actually is a great point. So these people are lifting a person onto a backboard, and that person has a spinal injury, and the last thing that we want to say about this is we don't want to drop this person, right? Now, there are a lot of different agencies. You may work for one. You may be familiar with one. They're putting the person on a backboard. I know that their New Mexico EMT no longer wants to use backboards. At Ski Apache, we use backboards for a lot of things. So it is important to see how these are set up at Apache. We use a thing called quick clips on the backboard. They're already attached to them, and they're numbered, so 4 goes with 4, 3 goes with 3. So it really does make it easy. There are other backboards that do not have any straps on them. They may use long straps or spider straps, which go over the entire torso. But the reason at Ski Apache that we do not use the Velcro straps, which seem, oh gosh, how easy would those be, is simply because when they're frozen, they're not going to connect with their mate very easily. So the quick clips really do work well, and then we will practice that when we go up on the mountain. Does anybody have any questions about that? So we will learn Ski Apache Ski Patrol backboarding procedures when we go up there. But this is just to remind you when you're doing a lift to be using good techniques. Now, what happens if you have to grab somebody? Hey, fella, they're walking through the parking lot. Do you mind helping us lift this person? If you have that scenario, which is fine, you do need to make sure that you give them specific directions before that lift occurs. All right, so next, the devices. There are lots of different devices and equipment. You may not always have what you need right away. So some of the devices, there's a transfer flat, which is for larger people that do help you lift people that weigh a lot. There are portable structures. The orthopedic scoop structure, for example, is great if you're in an extremely tight place because it literally comes apart down the center and allows you to scoop up the patient without having to worry about fitting a huge backboard in between something. And I have actually seen the scoops and the longboard used in other reasons. I mean, sure, we're going to use them for people that may have spinal injuries or pelvic fractures or femur fractures, but the reality is that I've seen these used to get people out of tree wells that can't walk. So there's a lot of creative things, reasons to have these pieces of equipment brought to your location. And every sled does have a backboard. So what does a sled have in it really quickly? Because I said you may not have what you need. You might have to call for it. The sleds have 2 blankets, one of which is an outer blanket. One is an inner blanket to keep the patient warm. There's a ladder splint and what we call a quick. And then the last thing that they have is the vinyl cover that will allow you to cover the patient so they don't get full of snow. So lots of things, but maybe not what you need. So the next slide. If you're not familiar with the next piece of equipment, the next piece of equipment is it's not a long board, it's not a short board, but it is a device called a Kendrick, which will allow you to get someone out of the vehicle. Well, have I ever seen this put on at Ski Apache? Yes, I have. And the reason I saw it was the person walked in, they sat down on a chair, and they said, I hurt my back. And lo, we had to use one of these because we couldn't just have the person stand up and throw them on a backboard. So this piece of equipment is a rather unique piece of equipment, but it is quite practical. The only thing that's not practical is the straps that go around the person's thighs. Once they go on the thighs, the person is in a seated position, and you will have to release them if you do put them on a backboard. Also in bathrooms, people that are injured, I know that that sounds strange, but last year we responded to 2 bathroom injuries. So this is a great piece of equipment to take. The piece of equipment below that you see there is a great piece of equipment when transporting people out to their cars. We put it in a wheelchair to allow the person's leg to be, so it's not having to be bent if they've hurt their knee or broken their leg or something. So this can go underneath the seat of the person in the wheelchair, and it allows their leg to remain straight while we're transporting them. So that's a great piece of equipment. Next slide, please. The next slide is about another move. We will practice, a very serious practice when we get up on the hill. This jams and pretzels seems rather silly, but you may come upon someone who's seriously injured and they're in a very distorted position. So the important things about a jam and pretzel when we move a patient so that we can transport them is, one, that we make sure that their head is secure. If they can't tell us if they hurt their neck, we always have to assume it. So we will hold the spine straight while we do make very, very small movements with the pretzel and jam. And we're going to practice this on the hill. So basically you take someone from a distorted position and you try to return them to an anatomical position. And the one that you see above the number 3 is basically what you're looking for. But there are quite a few other anatomical positions. Next slide, please.
Before we go on, what's the name for position 3 for somebody who's not on patrol? Anybody know?
I know.
Somebody blurted out. No?
Supine.
There we go, supine. Make sure that you know supine and prone. Those will come up on the test many, many times. So, anyway.
All right. So the next slide just explains how the pretzels and jams are done. Very short increment movements, making sure that you maintain a good head and neck position. The next slide, please. All right. So how are you going to move a person with a spinal injury? Well, you know what? We're not going to cover this in depth because the fact is when we do spinal injuries, you're going to see this. But you always must consider the person has a spinal injury, especially if they can't tell you what happened. Other things to consider, is it an urgent move? Are you responding to a fire in the kitchen area? So other things, urgent moves, you need to make sure that it's a life-threatening situation before you move somebody quickly. And we're going to look at a couple urgent moves very quickly, and then we're going to go on and practice them when we get on the hill. So next slide, please. These are single urgent moves, so you're there by yourself and the person needs to be moved quickly. If you don't have anything, using their coat is great. You can use an underarm wrist drag where you reach through, have them cross their hands. Obviously they need to be conscious, and then you have a blanket drag which you would roll them onto. Next slide. The next slide shows that maybe the patient can help you, certainly if the patient is conscious and they feel capable. But always remember that a person who has sustained an injury may be dizzy, they may experience pain and fall. So if you're going to try one of these, you need to make sure that perhaps there are 2 people in the room with you. All right, the next slide. These are other ways to carry people, the chair carry. I'm sure you guys did that when you were a child, but we'll practice them when we get up on the hill. Another carry, the fore and aft carry on the next slide, is a great way to move somebody quickly, and it does take 2 patrollers. The one that is something that we will actually, it is an OEC skill, is the ground lift, where you have the person lie supine, you reach under them, you roll them, you pick them up together, and then you roll their body weight towards you so that it distributes the weight amongst the 3 people. The next slide. The next slide shows the bean lift, which is also an OEC skills lift, which we will practice, but basically it is a way of picking someone up from the ground and getting them onto the backboard with very little movement. All right, and transporting the patient. Let's go on.
Make sure that you know the bean lift. I would, check out the videos we have on YouTube or look up your own, because that, if I had to guess, that one would be on the practical.
Okay, that's a good one, Ben. All right, so transporting people at Ski Apache, well, if they're coming off the mountain, you may be using a sled. So when we're transporting them, Jeff pulls sleds, so he knows how. You usually put the injury uphill. When wouldn't you put the injury uphill? Anybody?
If they're going into shock.
So why would you want their head towards the downhill? What would be happening?
If they're going into shock.
You want the blood to stay in their vital organs. So that makes perfect sense. What if they're spurting blood? Would you want, so remember that gravity is a big player with transporting toboggan. Also remember at Ski Apache when we do have a toboggan that is attached to a snowmobile. So if you're on some of the lower mountain things, it doesn't always have to be pulled by a ski patroller. They can bring the snowmobile up. The next slide, please. Other things that we use for transportation, during the summer, if you are up there, you might find that we actually have an ATV that can pull a wheeled cart, and those are very, very helpful. The last thing I will say is, if you're considering advising someone to call an air ambulance, the cost of the air ambulance is $65,000. If you don't think that's true, my person who works for me at Holloman Air Force Base just had her husband transported, and she just got the bill. So the fact is that there's lots of different ways to get people down off the mountain, but the most important thing is that we get them into the sleds comfortably. Now, we were talking about putting the backboards within the sleds. What would be one thing that you would need a backboard for? How about CPR? You're having to do CPR. Does the person really have to be strapped to a backboard? Well, not necessarily, but I will tell you, if you're being the person doing CPR, you probably want that backboard underneath them so that you could do CPR on the way down the hill. So other things about transportation we will cover when we discuss medical issues. So, Jeff, are you ready for the next slideshow, which is number 6?
Oh, whoops.
You're already there, huh?
Oh, whoops. Wait. Nope. Let me go to...
All right. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on anatomy and physiology, but I'm going to tell you what, you need to, okay? Anatomy and physiology. Did anybody take it in high school? Maybe you did, maybe you didn't. Maybe you have a nursing or doctorate degree. But the fact is that there are a lot of questions on the test that make you connect the dots with anatomy and physiology and how you're going to take care of patients. Would you agree with that, Van? that there are actually questions that talk about anatomy and physiology?
Oh, yes, absolutely.
So you guys need to dive in there and actually read these chapters. You may say, okay, this isn't really important, but if you don't know how one system affects another system, you could kill somebody, and that is the truth. You didn't check their pelvis, and they are bleeding into a cavity that is huge and could carry a ton of blood before you even noticed that they were bleeding out. So you knowing where all the pieces and parts of the puzzle are really important. Parts of the cavity, spinal cavity, thoracic cavity, abdominal cavity. If these things aren't familiar to you, for example, I was a school teacher, a math teacher. I didn't know an abdomen from a cranium except that I knew that my kids needed to use the top one. And so the fact is that I had to learn all of these. So it is important. But what we're looking for when we learn all of these body systems, cavities, different locations of organs and things, is that we're trying to keep our patient in what's called homeostasis, which is making sure that the systems are working together to keep this person in a healthy condition. So the next slide. The next slide, that's the one I was on. I'm sorry. That's the one I was talking about. So would you go to the next slide, Jeff?
That's a groaner.
Yeah. Well, these words, if you're not familiar with these words, you need to learn these words. Is the elbow distal to the wrist, or is it proximal to the shoulder? Or these words seem insignificant because we all speak English. But the fact is you may come upon a radio call that says, hey, we've got a man, he's got a mid-axial injury. I mean, if you're not familiar with these words, you're going to have trouble explaining them. Is this injury on the anterior or posterior? And also you're going to use these words when you write your reports. So please do learn these words. They are important. And so next slide, please. All right, here we are, my test for the day. So, Trace, what's the name of position A?
Position A is supine.
It's supine, okay.
Supine.
B, Noel, what's B? The answers are down in the box below, by the way.
Oh, that's eaten.
Prone?
Prone, very good. Like a sniper would lay prone, right? So, how about the guy from Texas there? Kurt, what's C?
I choose Fowler.
Fowler. No! What is that?
Recumbent. I don't know.
Recumbent. That is correct. He's laying on his side. D, that is Fowler. E is semi. And F, which, Jeff, I don't think we use F anymore, do we? The Trendelenburg?
For shock, maybe.
Maybe for shock.
You do when you put somebody in a toboggan.
There you go. So it actually could be a reason why. And here's the thing. When you start doing the medical patient assessments, they may ask what position these people should be in.
F?
So
there's a question on F in the obstetrics chapter. It's been on the last two exams, and it's about, you'll have to forgive me because I've never experienced childbirth.
Lucky.
It might have to do with a breech birth, or I forget. But there's one time when a woman's having problems with labor when you put her into the Rothberg position.
Okay.
We'll cover that when we.
So that's the Rothberg. That's not the Trendelenburg position?
No.
Oh, okay, Rothberg. Okay, well, good. Thank you for correcting me. So these positions do become important, especially if you have someone who says, I need a position of comfort.
You're right. That is Trendelenburg.
Well, what if the person's having a heart attack? Which position do you want them in? They're having trouble breathing. You're going to be making the connections with all of these words to medical conditions that you're going to learn in other chapters. So please, please do pay attention. Next slide, please. since I'm running out of time, and Jason is probably going, shut up, shut up. All right, the next system is the body systems. I'm not going to go over all of the body systems. There are 11 systems that we want to have interaction with each other to maintain good health. You do need to read all of these systems. It seems insignificant, but you may find that the nervous system is affecting something in the respiratory system, and so there are connections with things that you'll need to be making. An example is, for example, the person says, my hand is numb. Oh, did you hurt your arm? Or do you have a pedal? Do you have a radio pulse? The reason why is they actually hurt their neck. So understanding that there are nerves running down from C1 and C2 that run down the arms that would cause numbness in a hand is really important. So please do read this chapter with that in mind, the connection. So the case dialogue, could you go to the next slide? I'm not going to read this slide to you, but the reason why I brought the next slide up is because you may approach somebody or you have to write a report and they're using words like they're having trouble in their thoracic cavity and you have no idea where that is. It's okay to ask, but it's important to know. So please, please do bone up on your medical terminology, which comes from Chapter 6. So we're going to move on to 7. And it's actually probably the most important thing that I'm going to say tonight, and we only have 7 minutes to say it. So what I'm going to tell you about Chapter 7 is the patient assessment chapter. We do patient assessment for medical reasons or trauma reasons. And there are some differences in the patient assessment chapter, but I think the most important thing that you do is when we start doing the on-the-hill things, that you do it the same every single time. I will tell you that this year, the folks who worked with me knew that I had severed my meniscus in early January, so I spent an awful lot of time in the patrol room. There wasn't a lot of slope time, and I got to do probably 10 assessments a day, and it really made me remember these things. So let's go to the first slide, or the second slide, about scene size. And I did want to show you these YouTube videos, and I'm not going to waste time doing that because I don't want to keep you all night. But there are 2 YouTube videos built into my, can you go to that? Yeah, one is at the top there, and the other one is the very last slide. So when you do this yourself, feel free to see these. The reason why I showed you these 2 YouTube videos is because when you become a real honest-to-goodness on-the-hill patroller or an auxiliary patroller in the patrol room, the first one is going to show you all the steps. Oh, my goodness. Do people do that every single time? Well, let me tell you something. For your test, the answer is you bet. But when they get on the hill, you'll find that people do take shortcuts. They're called more of a focused assessment. And at the end of this slide presentation is another patroller doing a focused assessment so they can get the person off the hill quickly so that they can get some help in the patrol room. So what I'm telling you is though that this checklist that you're going to see today is very important. Now, eventually you may cut things out. You may find that you can do them a different way, but it is important that when you're learning these to do them every single time. All right, so the first thing we always said was scene size up. Is the scene safe? Go ahead, Jeff.
Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
So go back, yeah. So the first one is scene safe. You haven't even touched the person and you have determined how many people there are. You may know, looking at the person, that you need a sled. So these things are happening within a matter of seconds. Your general impression before you even touch the person. Hi, where is the person? What has happened? Can you notice anything? This is within 3 to 5 seconds of pulling up. The one thing, though, that I find that people forget all the time is the thing on the very bottom. Don't forget to introduce yourself, because you can learn a whole lot simply by saying, hi, my name is Jamie. What's yours? So next slide. Because if you say, they say, hi, my name is Jamie, and they say, well, my name is Jeff, then on the next slide you'll realize that when you're looking at the ABCDE for Ski Patrol, that you're going to find that you've answered some of your questions. First of all, if they answer back, yeah, I hurt my leg, it's really bad, you know that they're breathing, right? They have an airway and they're breathing? Yeah, so you've just answered two of those questions by just asking them their name. The next thing is their circulation, which we will teach you how to evaluate through many different ways, looking at someone's color, their lips, their capillary refills, putting on a pulse ox. The next thing is their disability. Now, most places when you learn the ABCs, you're going to stop at C, but we jump into D, which is a disability. Now, is it the actual disability like their leg is broken? Nope, it's the actual disability of their mental status. So can the person actually answer your questions? Do they know where they are? You know, because a lot of people hit their heads and they're not wearing helmets. What are they thinking? Anyway, so it is important to make sure and carry through to D and then E, which is, do I need to expose this person out on the hill? You may find that you do have to cut their pants right there because they're bleeding. So you need to think about exposure as part of the primary assessment and not wait too long. All right, next slide.
I'm just going to add one
Go ahead, Jeff.
to this slide. So somewhere in between BSI, scene safety, number of patients, remember to get permission to treat.
Oh,
otherwise,
thank you.
Them.
I did forget that, right. Don't touch somebody until they say, yes, you can.
It's a CPI on the test, so if you don't get permission to treat, then you failed the scenario, even if it was perfect.
Oh, very good, Jeff. Well, gosh. I definitely am going to add that to my slides. All right, so the next thing is when you have a little bit more time, you're going to start evaluating them for baseline vitals. You're going to be asking them questions. Hey, do you take any medication? Well, do you have any allergies? Well, you may find that they're on blood thinners and they have a bleeding gash in their leg. So all of these things are very important to ask rather quickly, especially if the person ends up not being able to talk to you later because they've passed out or something. So please, you can add these into the conversation while you're assessing them. But don't overwhelm the person by asking them too many questions at the same time. I find that when there are multiple patrollers on the hill, if there's too many people asking questions, it becomes problematic because the person doesn't know where to focus their attention. So we're going to be learning things like samples, signs, allergies, medication, past medical history, last oral intake, and events. These things are going to become very rote. We have a lot of acronyms to learn. Sample, OPQRST, that's the next one. Bead caps, bottles, sailor, so lots of other ones. So let's go on, Jeff. All right, so you finally got the person in the room and you're going to do a full inspection of this person by touching them all over. The guy goes, no, I hurt my leg. If they tell you not to do it, obviously, like Jeff reminded me, then don't do it. But it is important to give someone a full evaluation because they may have injured something else or you may have overlooked something. So please do learn the full assessment from the head to the neck to the chest all the way down to the toes. You're going to be touching these people. And I mean you're going to touch them. If you have an aversion to touching people, then you're in the wrong profession because you are going to touch people. You're going to need to do it with some kind of authority, nice strong hands, and make them feel comfortable while you may have to, reach your hand in between their legs or around their breasts or something. So you do need to be careful, but you do need to be aware. One thing that's missing from the secondary assessment is another acronym called DCAPS bottles. Things that you're going to be looking for include deformity, contusions, abrasions, punctures, burns, tenderness, lacerations, and swelling. Those things are all in your book. And so when we get on the mountain, you're going to assess trauma, you're going to assess medical, but you're going to need to be doing it the same every single time. So the next slide is the last slide, which has my great video about the guy with the broken leg, but that's okay. The last thing you need to do is once the person is in the room and you've treated them is to reassess them. The reassessment is either 5 or 15 minutes. If the person is unstable, it needs to be every 5 minutes, and if they are stable, you need to at least readdress them, look at their vitals every 15 minutes. All right, so not least, we have one more thing to do, which is talk about medical communications, which is in Chapter 8. Folks, we do a whole lot of documentation at Ski Apache, and it is very important. And these things are legal documents. They could be called in a court of law. So if you're putting your name on it, you need to do them well. And I will tell you that it has taken me a good solid 3 years to get to do these pretty well. But if you don't, I guarantee someone will tell you that you have not done them well and you need to redo them. So we're going to talk very quickly about medical communications. We have about 7 different forms at Ski Apache that we use, and you need to become familiar with them so that, for example, someone pulls a sled in and they say, "Hi, this is Brett. He's a 54-year-old male who fell on this slope. He's stable. We've put him in a quick splint. He has good, pulses in both legs." They give you all of this. Is their job done with? Do they just get to walk out and not fill out any paperwork? Well, they would like to. But unfortunately, there are lots of different forms. The forms include witness forms. Did anybody see this accident? Oh, I saw it. I'm his brother, and I saw him. He went off a jump. Well, those are important things for us to document. They help us medically, and they also help Ski Apache. There are other things like on the hill. But one of the most important forms is a medical Jeff, what's the name of it when they don't? Refusal form.
Oh, yep.
Okay. So lots of different forms, but the one you must carry while you're on patrol is the medical refusal form. Now, does the person have to sign a medical refusal form? No. If they say, "I don't want to sign it," then you write on there that the patient refused to sign it, but they asked not to be treated. The important thing about the medical refusal form is they can't come back and say, "They didn't tell me." So the other thing is if you can get a witness to someone refusing your care, that is also important. So lots of different forms. The next slide. The next slide is about the basics of communications. I'm not going to insult your intelligence by not thinking that you understand what good communication skills are. But I think the one thing that's probably the most important thing is when we're talking about radio communications, which we will practice on the Hill, is the message sender and the message receiver understanding the same message. Okay? There are lots of radio protocols if you're not used to using radios. I was in the Air Force. I was an Air Force meteorologist, and I used to talk to pilots. And when I would talk to a pilot while he was up in the air, we're always required to say the word over, because over said, "It's your turn now to talk." Well, at Ski Apache, they don't use the word over. I still use it, and I get, I get laughed at a lot. But the reality is it doesn't matter about things like that. But the things you do need to realize about radio communications are, one, are you hearing what the person said? You may want to repeat what they say. Hey, I'm going to respond to the patient on, this slope on the left side. This is Jamie. I'm going now. When you get there, you call back in. You let them know you got there. These are important things so that the rescue runs smoothly. So little things like that we will practice. You may have your own techniques, but the one thing about the radio channel 1, which is what we use at Ski Apache, is that other people can hear it. There's lots of people on that band. We don't give out personal information. We don't go, "Holy heck, this guy's brain is all over." No, we wouldn't say things like that. So you will need to learn some basic, communication skills, which we'll do up on the mountain. The next slide, please. The next one uses an acronym named SAILOR. These are important things to transmit down to the people waiting in the patrol room to get the patient. So the sex, the age, what's going on, so that they're ready. And you may need more resources. And so these are important things to remember, the acronym SAILOR. The next slide, Jeff, is written communications. Once again, people will be reading your form. I'm hoping that you all have good penmanship. But things to realize, you may be the recorder of an incident. For example, if we have a severe trauma, they may say, hey, we don't need you to help, but we'd like you to record everything. So recording things become a permanent record, but you also need to include all the other patrollers who are working on that, so you will get good at this. The one thing that I have not done very well is field care notes, where I actually write down things. I have seen people do this better than I, and it might be something that really appeals to you. I took their pulse on the slope. It was 60. They get down to the patrol room, and their pulse now is 100. Something has changed. And so if you don't have a good memory, using field care notes will be important. So the next slide, Jeff. I love the quote at the bottom. The strongest ink is stronger. The weakest ink is better than the strongest memory. The fact is, folks, if you don't write it down, it never happened. Can you make corrections to these reports? Yes, you can. But the reality is that you don't want to. The next slide, Jeff. If you do need to make changes to your report, the way it's done is to draw a single line through the entry. Don't scribble it out. I'm a terrible speller. No one cares. But do try to, use medical terminology when you're doing this. Who was at the scene? Do we have a witness? Those things, so that we can get all the proper documentation. The next slide, Jeff, is the one that says SOAP and cheated. Okay, so SOAP, subjective, objective, assessment plan. Folks, these are things that you need to consider. What is qualitative information on the report? Well, qualitative information is the description. Did the person say anything? Were their lips blue? Was there, bio-waste left at the scene? Do we need to clean that up? Those are called qualitative pieces of information. And the quantitative things in SOAP are the numbers. How is their pulse? How is their respiration? Those are important things to be able to do. And the last acronym for tonight is CHEATED. You want to know what the person's chief complaint is, their history, their examination, assessment, treatment. All of these things, by knowing these silly little words like SOAP and cheated and SAILOR, is that they're going to remind you that you need to include them when communicating with other people and on your final reports. And so when you're writing a good report, on the next slide, Jeff, there is another acronym. Of course there is. Look at the acronym there, factual OEC. These need to be factual, accurate. You don't need to say, I think, or the person is drunk. Folks, none of those words need to be used on a report. If the person is exhibiting signs of having consumed too much alcohol, you write that. But you don't make judgment calls on your reports. They need to remain unbiased, and they're not going to use slang, and pretty much error-free. So I thank you very much. The last slide is about special circumstances. One of the special circumstances that you will face at Ski Apache is minor children. If you are going to treat a minor child without their parent present, you need to think twice about it. They need to be in critical condition before, and you need to document that. Because we do try to treat special patients. We have people that are part of the adaptive ski program that are handicapped. We have mentally handicapped people. They may not want you to touch them. We have autistic children. We have people with lots of different circumstances, elderly people, people who don't want to be touched. So whenever whenever you're writing these reports, think about the special circumstances that these people are doing. Anyway, once again, my name's Jamie. I'm going to see you guys at Ski Apache on the 3rd, and I apologize for going over 11 minutes because it is now Jason's turn. Thank you so much. I can't wait to meet you all.
Nice. Well done, Jamie. Thanks. That was, she said it a couple times, guys, but I'll emphasize again, like those were some pretty crucial chapters that she blew through in this last hour. By necessity, we have to blow through them. So I highly encourage you to go back through and make sure you just know those chapters cold. Same thing for the chapters we're about to do. Jeff, I have a question for you.
Sorry, I was on mute.
Hey, can we do a few minute break? Go grab a cup of coffee, go use the potty if anybody needs to?
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. How do I flip this to you for control?
Aha. Give me 1 second and I'll request it from you.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to request control.
Okay.
And you should have an option to hand it over to me.
Okay. And then we'll, let's see, what time are we at? So is everybody okay with 5 minutes?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See you in 5.
Take 5. We'll be back at 7:18.
All right.
Jeff, did you get my request to transfer?
No.
Let me try that again. All right. Requesting control. Are you sure to request control on OEC? Yes. Oh, there you go. Now you got something from me.
Really?
On your icons, the icon with the little connector has a little blue or green dot above it.
This one?
Yeah. And down at the bottom is the little switcher.
It's grayed out.
Okay. Option number 2. Go to Go to the little peoples, where you can see a list of us that are participating. Scroll down to mine.
Oh, here, I got it.
And that little drop-down arrow.
Yep,
I think presenter.
You have it?
I think I've got it.
Okay, cool. Weird thing is that, there we go. I think maybe it's just slow. There we go. I see your screen.
Perfect.
All right, you're set. I'm going to go on mute.
All right.
Okay, there we go. You even on screen. I don't have guts like that. I don't want to be on webcam.
It's all right.
So, okay, I'm going to go take my own little personal break, but I'll be back when you start. Okay.
Okay, we got about 3 more minutes.
Jason.
Good. Is there anybody still on at the moment?
Van's still here.
Hi, Van.
Jamie's still here.
All right.
Jenny's still here.
Sweet.
Kurt's back.
so Jenny, why are you doing ski patrol? Are you going to work for ski patrol, or are you just going to work up at the instructors just with the medical knowledge now?
It's a very loaded question.
I didn't realize that. Sorry.
I work 2 seasons right now, working towards year-round, and because it is Ski Apache, well, I say Ski Apache, it's any ski area. We're always shorthanded in every department.
Yeah.
We're robbing Peter to pay Paul, and it's always good for everyone to know a little bit of everything. I mean, and we've been talking in the patrol about, if more instructors can even just drag an empty sled, it would help.
Okay.
Yeah, so Fred and I were talking, and he goes, you really need to take the course. And I am a mountain bike guide, and I run the mountain bike school up there, and I'm a supervisor.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, it's just a good thing for me to know and do and be able to jump in there if they need me.
Woohoo. Well, that's cool.
Woo-hoo.
That's awesome. I love it.
So,
and, Kurt, what about you, man? You said that you've been doing the ski thing for a while, and you're ready to up the ante?
Yeah, I told you I just finished my IFR, and you know what a shoal hole is, right? And your series finishes, and then you're sitting there with nothing to do. This is something I've wanted to do forever, and I'm just so used to studying and reading every night that this is I better get right into the next thing before I get lazy.
That's hilarious.
This is something I've really wanted to do. Kids are getting out of the house here pretty soon, so I need something to occupy my time on the weekends. But we have a house up there in Ruidoso.
Okay.
So.
Yeah. And Nick, are you still on? I don't know if Nick's still on or not.
Yeah, I am.
Oh, there you are. And what about you, man? Are you active military, or are you just are getting out?
No, I am active military.
Okay, and so where are you stationed at?
Holloman Air Force Base.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
No, that's why I got on late today. I had to get off work real late.
Oh. Not a problem. Not a problem. Very cool. And Travis?
Yeah. Oops. Yeah.
There you are. And Travis, you did Yellow Vest this last year, right?
I did, yes, sir.
Yeah, okay. I was wondering if it was the same Travis. This will be a lot more fun when I actually get to see everybody's face in a couple of weeks. But awesome. Okay. That's what I did. As 2 years ago, I was a Yellow Vester, and then this last summer, I took the OEC course. I actually am a part-time patroller now for Ski Apache on the Pro Patrol. I live here in Ruidoso, and I was excited to do instructing because it helps me learn the content and the material even better. And instructing is kind of what I do for a living. I'm a pastor, and so I do a lot of teaching. And so this is my way of giving back to a program that has given me a lot. So we're going to cover 4 chapters. Do we have everybody back? That's a really dumb question in this scenario because I can't tell if anybody's not back. So, oh well. All right. Let me make sure we're all set up here. Okay, we're going to cover airway management. We're going to cover shock. We're going to cover altered mental status, and we're going to cover substance abuse, poisonings, things like that. So we're going to go through a whole lot today. Again, same principle applies. What you need to do is make sure that you have these chapters down cold. Hopefully this is just review for you, everything that I'm going to share. The best way that you can help the learning process tonight is if you just interrupt me and ask questions for clarification, because it's the one thing we can do tonight that you won't be able to do on your own. Lots of what we do tonight we will also practice then up on the hill 2 weeks from now, or 2.5 weeks as the case may be here. on June 3rd. We'll practice a lot of this stuff tonight. So, everybody good? Everybody nod your head so that I know you're good to go. Wait, that's dumb too. All right, here we go. Airway management. As Jamie was saying, one of the primary things that we do as ski patrollers is we are monitoring their airway, their breathing, their circulation, and if they have any disabilities, right? And so airway management is A and B. So when we're talking airway management, some of the we have very limited things that we are able to do to help a patient who has trauma or medical issues. We have a few tools in our toolbox in order to utilize. One of the main things that we can do, though, is maintain a proper airway. And so that's our goal tonight, is to make sure that we maintain a proper airway. Our objectives, anatomy, we're going to go through that again. I want to make sure that everybody knows how to do the head tilt, chin lift, jaw thrust, and cross finger, which we're going to do up on the hill. So you're going to see slides for that, but we're not going to spend a lot of time doing that. Making sure that you know the methods that we have available to us to clear an airway if it is obstructed. And then describe how to put a patient into the recovery position, which Jamie introduced us to. We're going to go into a little more detail. And then we're going to talk about how to use a suction catheter, both rigid and flexible. We're going to talk about the basic airway management tools that we have, or the OPAs and the NPAs, the oropharyngeal airway, the oropharyngeal airway, and the nasopharyngeal airway. And so we're going to talk about how to use those. But again, we'll practice those up on the hill. Calculate oxygen flow rate. There's a wonderful complex equation in your book. We're going to make it a lot simpler tonight. And then we're going to talk a little bit about setup and breakdown of an oxygen tank. But again, we're going to cover most of that up on the hill. Safety, oxygen safety, we're going to talk a little bit about, but again, most of that's pretty basic. And then we're going to go the delivery system for oxygen, the nasal cannula, the non-rebreather, pocket mask, bag valve mask, and face shield. All right. Here's, for the next 10 minutes, here's what we're going to do. We're going to cover the anatomy. We're going to go airway management, oxygen therapy, and finish up with our summary. All right, again, going back to Jamie's point, anatomy and physiology is the basic foundational vocabulary that you're going to be using to communicate with other ski patrollers and the rest of the emergency medical system. So know your stuff. When it comes to the anatomy and physiology of the airway, it's broken into the upper airway and the lower airway. So know that the upper airway and lower airway is divided at the larynx. So the upper airway is the nasopharynx, the oropharynx, the laryngeopharynx, the epiglottis, and then the vocal cords, the larynx there. And then below that, you have the tracheals, bronchioles, the VOI. And so, again, these are words that you should just start to know really, really well. And if you have a medical background, you have an advantage, because it's a bunch of vocabulary you don't need to know, or that you already know, I should say. All right. So airway management is just the physical process of ensuring that the airway is open and clear so that air can get into the lungs. And so one of the things that we're going to make sure we do as ski patrollers is that their airway is not blocked by themselves or by a foreign substance. So we have these three maneuvers that we have at our disposal: the head tilt chin lift maneuver, which we'll talk about here in just a second, the jaw thrust maneuver, which we use when there is spinal cord, when we're worried about preserving the integrity of their spinal cord. And then the cross finger method is just to open the mouth so that we have can put in airways, suction, or remove an obstruction. All right, head tilt chin lift. We use this when there is no spinal injury suspected. Again, this is important for the test, but also important for on the hill. When you have a patient who is not breathing or does not have an airway, and we need to establish an airway, and we know that their spinal cord is okay, then we go ahead and use this. We'll practice it on the hill. This is the technique we're going to use when we're not sure if they have a spinal injury, and if we're certain that they have a spinal injury, we're going to go ahead and use the jaw thrust technique. And the whole purpose of this is just to bring that tongue off the back of the throat so it opens that airway again. And so we'll use this technique. If you've had it done to you, it hurts like the dickens, or at least it did me when I had it tested on me. And so, but we use it. We have an unconscious patient or a patient who's semi-conscious that needs help maintaining an airway. By the way, a good thing to remember as we're going through all of these, if you come upon a patient that you did not witness go unconscious, your assumption is that that person has a spinal cord injury until proven otherwise. And so again, the jaw thrust maneuver when you come upon a patient that's unconscious is going to be your go-to maneuver. All right, there's your, stick your fingers in there, spread that mouth apart. We'll practice up on the hill many, many times. All right, there's an obstruction inside the airway. We need to figure out a way to get it out. Your best tool is gravity. Turn that patient on the side, lean that patient up. If they're semi-conscious, help them get whatever's in out. The finger sweep, not my favorite option because you have to put your finger into somebody else's mouth that may or may not be conscious and know what they're doing, losing a finger in the process. So not my favorite, but useful if necessary. And we'll go over our suction devices because we can actually physically suction things out of a person's mouth. There are the two devices that we use up at Ski Apache, a manual suction on your left and an electronic suction on your right. We'll go over the assembly and use of those suction devices on the third. All right, some basic principles though. I like just having basic things in my head so that I can apply those basic things then when I'm treating an actual patient. Basic idea though that we need to make sure that the patient has enough oxygen. Remember, when you're suctioning, you're also suctioning that air and oxygen away from that which is bringing it in. And so if you have the opportunity, pre-oxygenate the patient. Make sure that you can see what you're doing. Never suction, never finger sweep. Don't do anything unless you can actually see what's in that mouth, and never go past what you can see. When we're inserting that catheter from either the manual or the automatic suction device, go ahead and do it. Put the catheter in before you begin the suction process, then turn the suction on, and don't do it for any more than 10 to 15 seconds. Again, you want to make sure that oxygen gets back on there and that they're doing what they need to in order to get the air that they need, and then repeat as indicated. All right, Jamie talked a little bit about the recovery position, something we'll practice at Ski Apache. You can see that another name for this is the left lateral recumbent position. And when you have a patient that's unconscious and you want to make sure that they're not aspirating any vomitus that they bring up, turn them on their side, keep them on their side by putting them in this position. It's a relatively safe position. Again, one of the things, maintaining spinal integrity is one of the hard parts about putting somebody in this position, but we'll talk about that up on the hill. There it is, leaning on their side. All right, this is awesome. This is when we actually get to put a simple airway maintenance device into the person. This is called an airway adjunct. It's a device that helps keep the airway open. When we're using, this is called a nasopharyngeal airway, and so an NPA. We use an NPA when the person is semi-conscious or has a gag reflex that's still intact, because you can actually insert this airway through their nose and it goes down into the back of their throat, and what it does is it gets between the back of their throat and their tongue, and so that the air can pass in, and it helps maintain the airway. You would use this after you've established the jaw thrust maneuver, but now you need to go on and do other things, like start rescue breathing for them. And so you can actually insert this NPA into their nostrils. You can even put 2 in if you need to, in order to establish and maintain that airway. And it's a pretty, well, you'll see in just a minute, you can be fully conscious and still have this in. The only time that you would not use the NPA is when you have a massive head injury, because you don't want to make that massive head injury worse by stabbing something into the back of their head that's stabbing important things instead of slipping nicely down their throat. When you're using the NPA, we're going to talk about sizing. We're going to use the acronym SLICK. We'll talk about sizing at the hill, but for sizing, what we're going to do is we're going to go from the nostril. Now let's see, which one can you see? From the nostril to the earlobe. And that's how we're going to size it. We'll practice that up on the hill. We're going to lubricate the device. We're going to insert the device. We're going to check that the device is in the right spot. We're going to witness somebody actually getting an NPA put in. You won't be able to hear it, but you'll be able to see it. I'm so excited. All right. All right, you can see him. He's already sized it at this point, assuming he's already lubricated it at this point. What he's doing is he's pulling that nostril up so that he has nice access to it. The beveled end is away from the septum. Man, it's being so slow.
Aren't we going to need a volunteer for this?
If anybody actually wants to volunteer for this, I'll do it to you, but it does not look or sound pleasant. Right now, the guy that's inserting it has reached a barrier of some sort, so he's trying to gently put it in. It's all the way in there now. Now the camera's gonna, you can't really see it right now, the camera's gonna get a light and you'll be able to actually see the device in the back of his throat. Ugh, ugh. All right, here comes the light. All right, there it is. Can everybody see that? You can actually see he's breathing through that. I love that. That's awesome. All right. Before we continue, does anybody have questions on NPAs? The little trumpets you insert through the nose. Excellent. Next, we're going to talk about OPAs, oropharyngeal airways, and these you're actually going to insert through the mouth. The big thing with these, though, is you cannot put it into a patient that has an intact gag reflex, because then they'll start vomiting, then they'll start aspirating, and things get exponentially worse for us trying to maintain an airway when a person experiences that. So if you have a patient that's semi-conscious or you have a patient that still has an intact gag reflex, we're not going to use the OPA. If you begin to insert the OPA and they gag, we're going to pull it right back out. All right. This one, the only difference is we're still going to size it, we're going to insert it, we're going to check it, but you don't need to lubricate it. And we'll go over the process of actually inserting it up at the mouth. All right, barrier devices. When you are providing rescue breaths to somebody else, again, a lot of this chapter we're going to cover up at the mountain, and a lot of this chapter we're going to cover again in CPR. So you're going to get this over and over and over again. Barrier devices, when you're providing rescue breaths to somebody, you want to make sure that they're not aspirating back up into you. And so we're going to use either a face shield or a pocket mask. These are the PPEs, personal protective equipment, that Jamie was talking about, one of the things that we'll be utilizing. I carry a face shield in my summer pack because it is so much smaller. In my winter vest, I carry the full face mask. And so those are the two things that we have to help keep things out of our face. If at some point something happens where they vomit, we have to remove these devices, tip them over on their side to let gravity do its work. All right, oxygen therapy. Oxygen therapy is what we're going to use most often up at Ski Apache, because up at Ski Apache, hang on one second, I just realized that can be bigger. Up at Ski Apache, it's one of the #1 tools that we have, and as you go through this book, you'll recognize that the treatment for almost every injury, almost every trauma, almost every sickness is apply high-flow O2, treat and monitor the ABCDs, and prepare for transport as fast as possible. These are like the 3 things we do every time, all the time. So applying oxygens are a big deal. If they're short of breath, cardiac, respiratory, chest pain, strokes, level of consciousness, head injuries, even broken bones, we apply O2 because it solves a multitude of problems. Yep, why isn't this working? Oops. Oh, oxygen cylinders. There's lots of different oxygen cylinders, big ones, little ones. Up at Ski Apache, we'll show you the 3 that we have at our disposal. The big ones that we have in the patrol rooms, the little ones that we carry in our O2 bags, and then what we call the scuds, little bigger replacement O2 bottles for when we need more oxygen up on the hill for a patient. But we'll do that all up at Ski Apache. I'm so excited for that time. Finally get to see everybody. All right. Big part of being able to apply oxygen therapy is properly setting up the O2 tank. And so we need to know the cylinder, the neck, the valve, kind of the basic anatomy of the tank. We need to be able to figure out when it's okay to use and if something looks cracked or broken and we need to not use that. On this slide, it says momentarily crack the valve. Before you apply the regulator, you need to make sure that there's no dust in the holes, and so you crack the valve, let it go, and attach the regulator. 2 things about oxygen tanks that are useful. It would seem obvious, but all medical oxygen that we're able to apply to a patient have massive green on them. Either they're all green or have big green stripes on them. The green is a good indicator that this is oxygen used for medical in use of medical needs. The other one is these regulators have 2 small pins in addition to the main pin, and that is unique again to medical oxygen designed for medical use. And again, we'll go over setup of the O2 tanks more fully up at Ski Apache.
I have a quick question about oxygen.
Go for it.
Does it delay the onset of shock, or does it affect it in any way?
It's one of the ways that we treat shock. We'll go through in the next chapter, because if we can provide an abundance of oxygen to the system, that's one of the causes for shock, is that the system does not have enough O2 being circulated to the necessary tissue. So we'll go through that. But yeah, oxygen therapy is the main way that we have to treat shock up on the mountain as we're waiting for more advanced medical support to arrive.
We'll cover that in the shock chapter. And what you're going to find out is what oxygen does is it keeps you in the compensated shock phase longer. And we'll tell you what that is later.
In just a few moments, as the case may be here. All right.
Oh, never mind.
Basic oxygen safety, let's not use it around open flames. Let's not use it while we're smoking. Shoot, I meant to look up why we can't use it while petroleum materials are present. Other instructors help remind me why petroleum's bad.
They can burst.
It actually catches fire.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Probably a safe.
Our oil guy.
Yeah.
Good safety tip, Econ. There you go.
Not set things on fire. That's
It's important.
And those other ones are all kind of self-explanatory. The last one, though, do not over-tighten the regulator. Is really good. Make sure that you're just hand tightening everything so that we're not causing a problem for the next person to use the O2 bottle. All right. Part of our oxygen therapy is how do we get that oxygen from the bottle to the patient. So we have the nasal cannula, the simple mask. The simple mask is not covered in your OEC book, but we use it up at Ski Apache. The non-rebreather mask, valve mask. Really important things to know because they are going to end up on your test, both the written and the practical exam, almost for certain. Tests, questions about how much can you use in each of these devices. So, nasal cannulas are appropriate for patients with low oxygen needs. All right, the loops for these go over the ears, and then the prongs go down into the nose. Okay, don't have them stick up into the nose. Go down into the nose. These call for, let's see, I think, do I have the next? Yeah. You can do 1 to 6 liters per minute of O2 through the cannula. 4 is recommended. That's a pretty good amount. You get up to 6, and you're spraying a lot of air up through the nasal cavity, which after a while can really dry it out and actually starts to irritate and burn. So 4 is a really good level to keep it at. Keep the prongs downward. And remember this, it can, at best, if the patient's breathing in through their nose, your oxygen is only going to be at 24 to 44%. I think our oxygen content of the air around us, if I remember off the top of my head, is like 21%. Maybe it's 16. Anyway, when we deliver through this adjunct, the best you can do is about 44%. And it's nice, it's well tolerated by patients because they don't have anything on their face. It's just the 2 prongs in their nose. All right, next we have the non-rebreather mask. You can pump from 10 to 15 liters per minute of O2 through this mask. It's going to fill a bag. We'll show you that in just a second. With this device, you can actually saturate that air from 80 to 90%, which is almost pure oxygen that they're breathing in there at that point. And so you can really saturate their body with a non-rebreather mask. Again, almost everything of major trauma or medical concern, if you're worried about them going into shock, let's throw the non-rebreather on at 15 liters per minute, and we'll titrate down after that. We'll talk about that up on the hill. One of the issues of the mask, though, is that it's covering part of the face, and in my short amount of experience, there's a number of people that really struggle with that claustrophobia, having something over their face, because it actually interferes a little bit with their vision, because it sticks up there. Kids especially, make sure at Ski Apache we do have masks for peds, and so make sure that you're using those. And that's what that looks like. That little bag, when you're setting up the mask, we'll practice up on the hill, you'll need to inflate before you apply it to the patient, FYI. And then finally, oh, I didn't cover it, but let's see if I can go back. Come on. The simple mask is just that mask without the bag on it, okay? And we use that up at Ski Apache. And you can deliver anywhere between 6 to 10 liters per minute on that mask for it being effective. And it's a nice in-between without putting the non-rebreather on there. You can get a little more oxygen applied to the patient using the simple mask. We use that a lot as well for patients that need more O2 than just the cannula, but they're not quite at that traumatic stage where they need, the full non-rebreather. Next, we have the bag valve mask, and this is what we apply when patients are struggling to breathe on their own. They're either breathing ineffectively or not breathing at all, and we need to actually provide the assistance to them with the non-rebreather. Here's what it looks like. You've got the face mask that's actually on there. You can see the ventilation bag, and you can see the oxygen reservoir. Same thing as the bag valve, or same thing as the non-rebreather. You need to fill the oxygen reservoir. I'll go back to this really quick. This one, as you can see, depending on how well you have that mask applied to their face, you can deliver up to 100% oxygen through this. And again, 12 to 15 liters per minute. Titrate depending on how empty that bag gets when we're using it. The oxygen reservoir that will go through that up on the hill. All right, delivery systems. Questions, comments, concerns?
No.
Sweet. All right. We're going to talk about up on the hill. We're not going to worry about it tonight, but there's a 2-person and a 1-person technique, and it's also taught in the CPR class. So we'll have plenty of time to go through that. There's the 2-person technique.
Sorry, I do have one question. Do you have to worry about oxygen poisoning, getting that much oxygen into somebody?
So there's a little research that talks about you can't really poison somebody with O2. O2 is a wonderful thing to use because there's really no downside of it. There is some research out there right now that talks about when you apply high-flow O2 to a trauma patient for extended periods of time, it increases the number of free radicals in their body, which can lead to kidney and vascular damage and some other damage. I can't remember.
But that'd be long-term.
But that's kind of beyond where we're going to have them. You know, we'll never have them like that. So
yeah. There is a thing called oxygen toxicity, but that's only under pressure. And that's the one thing we don't have to worry about at altitude is high pressure. Oh. Sorry, that was my bird.
Your bird did not agree with you, apparently, there, Jeff.
Maybe he needs oxygen.
All right. One of the tools that we have available to us in the patrol room, some patrollers carry them actually in their vests, is a pulse oximetry meter. And it measures the the oxygen saturation in blood. One of the things, and typically we want to see that reading at 95% or higher. Up at 9,000 feet, which is what the base of Ski Apache is, we're kind of happy in that 93 to 5 range. You know, we're going to say, hey, that's pretty good if we can get them up to that range. Something that's interesting about the oxygen saturation, and it's a little more complicated than our book covers, but there's not a direct correlation between percentage of saturation and the amount of oxygen in the bloodstream. It's actually more like not a bell curve, but what would that term be in geometry? Yeah, it's more exponential. Remember, as the O2 percentage goes down, it's exponentially less oxygen in the bloodstream. So that's why if we're hitting 90, 89, we're getting panicky about the amount of oxygen that they have in their bloodstream, and you're going to start to see evidence of that lack of oxygen in their bloodstream because they're going to be catatonic, if I'm saying that right. They're going to start exhibiting signs of blueness around their lips, their fingers, things like that. So remember that percentage is exponentially less oxygen in the bloodstream. It's a big deal. Here's what the pulse ox looks like. One of the things to remember with the pulse ox is it's not foolproof. Fingernail polish blocks the pulse ox. Cold fingers gives inaccurate readings. So remember, it's a good tool to use, but don't use it exclusively. And even though it gives you a pulse rate, remember it's no substitute for actually finding the pulse yourself, because when you find the pulse yourself, you can determine its strength and a whole bunch of other things that the pulse ox won't tell you. All the pulse ox tells you is how often the heart is beating, not what's the quality of the beat. All right, gastric distension. When we're providing oxygen, or when we're using the bag valve mask or providing rescue breaths from ourselves, if you push too much air into the body, it's going to go into the stomach. That's gastric distension. That's a bad thing. We'll go over that up on the mountain in our CPR class. All right. Remember, when we're talking about anatomy of the airway, make sure you know where it's divided between the upper and the lower airway. Airway management, make sure it's open, make sure it's clear. Maintain the airway is the biggest thing that you can provide as a ski patroller. Making sure that airway is open and cleared and functioning. And then if you need to provide rescue breaths, make sure you have personal protective equipment. Never go mouth to mouth with somebody, not because it's inappropriate, but because it puts you at great personal risk when you go mouth to mouth. Oxygen therapy, make sure you know how to set up and break down a tank, what your delivery systems are and how much oxygen distribution they have available to them, and then what a pulse ox is. Questions, comments, concerns about airway are A and B of our airway management. No. Coffee break. Good. Okay. So, Kurt, this is going to go now into your question about shock. One of the ways we treat and manage shock is with oxygen. So we'll cover that in just a minute. If our airway management covers the A and B of the ABCDs of our primary assessment, shock is primarily dealing with the C. We have a circulation problem. I don't know if you guys remember, but like all the medical shows that you'll see, ER, MASH, all these things I remember watching, and they say, oh, he's going into shock. And I always thought that meant like he's panicking or something, his body's not responding. But, it's actually more of a technical term. We'll go over that in just a second. Shock is, by the way, is something that almost everyone we see in the patrol room is experiencing at some level because of the altitude that we're at Ski Apache. The body is always compensating for the altitude at Ski Apache, which by strict definition is shock. Okay, it's just compensated shock, and so that's why this chapter is so important, because that person is always in a state of shock, and we're always trying to manage that, help ease their body as they're going through this trauma. Okay, we're going to define shock. We're going to describe the basic components of the cardiovascular system. The key components of blood, I'm going to kind of skip over that. You can do that on your own. We're going to talk about cardiac output and the equation that we use to come up with that. We're going to compare and contrast the 3 stages of shock and what are those. The 4 types of shock, those are big things too. Remember what types of shock we have, because the type of shock is going to dictate to us some of the things that, how we're going to treat it. Signs and symptoms, management. There's how we're going to flow. All right, heart, blood vessels, and blood. Basic physiology. Yay. All right, 3 stages of shock. You've got compensated shock, decompensated shock, and irreversible shock. Shock is defined as the failure of the circulatory system to maintain adequate blood flow to tissues, resulting in a state of inadequate perfusion in which cells do not receive sufficient amounts of oxygen and nutrients to meet their immediate metabolic needs. So, yeah, you can summarize that as blood's not carrying enough stuff to where it needs to go. Okay. Woo! I just blew through a bunch of that. Any questions on what shock is? All right, if the blood's not carrying enough of the stuff to where it needs to go in the body, and that's oxygen and that's glucose, then the body has to work harder in order to get those nutrients where it needs to go. It does this in a couple of ways. Compensated shock means that the body is able to compensate for the lack of the nutrients that it's receiving by working harder. All right? And so you see the two arrows and the dash. That's kind of my way of remembering that in compensated shock, you're going to see a patient's heart rate go up. You're going to see a patient's breaths per minute go up. But you're going to see their blood pressure be pretty stable. It's going to be normal for all purposes. Compensated shock is reversible, and there's very few side effects. Next, we have decompensated shock. One of the ways that, and this means that the body's starting now to fail to do the thing it's supposed to do in order to get the nutrients it needs. That means that it's not oxygenating, it's getting tired. So the body's no longer able to compensate for its deficiencies. And in this stage, you're going to see not just an increase in the beats per minute of the heart, but you're going to see that boundingness of the heart happen. You're going to see the breaths per minute increase, but you're also going to see those breaths probably become shorter. In this phase of shock, you're going to see that systolic part of the blood pressure start to go down. And so it's going to drop below 90. It's going to drop below 90 mmHg, which I can never remember how to say that. Irreversible shock is, decompensated shock you can survive. You can come back from, but there's possibly complications because your body's experienced such a trauma to it. There's complications. Irreversible shock, everything's shutting down, and it's not survivable or reversible. So, all right, let's see. I've got background noise from somebody, and I can't figure out who it is. Maybe Becky?
Yes, I jumped in. I'm sorry. I'm going to mute.
Go ahead. Put it on mute, because I can... There we go. All right, there we go. All right, here's your 4 different types of shock. And I'm not going to go through a whole lot of them. I'm going to let you read through those. And it gives very specifically the hypovolemic, cardiogenic, obstructive, and distributive. The thing to remember with these is that it helps figure out the source of what the problem is. The hypovolemic, you don't have enough blood. The distributive, you've got a problem with the vessels and the veins that are distributing the blood. Cardiogenic, the engine, the pump, there's something wrong there, or obstructive, something is stopping the blood from getting to where it needs to go. All right, when you're treating for shock, remember age is a factor. Young and old do not do well with shock. A young kid can be doing fine and then just tank on you, so be super self-conscious, or be super aware of that. Illnesses, pre-existing conditions, mind-altering substances, prescriptions, they can all have an impact on how they're being affected by shock. All right, patient assessment. Just like Tina was going over, establish what the mechanism of the injury is. It's going to really help you figure out how best to treat that patient. Scene size up, scene safety, all that stuff is the most important thing. Start looking around for clues before you even have to talk to the patient. Start searching around and seeing what's going on. And start looking for possible shock. If a person looks like there's something wrong, there's something wrong. And start treating them like they have shock. All right. Classic signs: tachycardia, hypotension, tachypnea, pale, cool, diaphoretic skin, altered mental status. Hopefully you know what all those are. All right, how do we manage high flow O2? Help the body return to homeostasis. Put them in the shock position, which just means the feet go up a little bit, and help pull that blood flow back to the center of their body, the vital organs, and then transport the head down position. Start treating for shock with every patient right away. There's just no reason not to. And then maintain a high suspicion that they're going to go into shock. Keep them warm, keep their feet elevated, keep them oxygenated, keep monitoring their vital signs. Just assume everybody's going to go into shock at some point. Because if they do, we can catch it early and help. Like Jeff said, we prolong their ability to maintain compensated shot until they receive more advanced life support. That's all good stuff. All right. Hey, Jeff, it's 8 o'clock, man. What do you want to do?
Oh, what's that? Well, can everybody keep going?
What do you want to do? Is there anybody that can't keep going? How about that?
Okay.
Well, if you can keep going, let's go because we'll record it, and then everybody, if they have to drop off, they can watch the recording later.
Sounds good.
I mean, otherwise the alternative is back Saturday, so.
Let's keep going. That's fine with me. Anybody that can stay, and then if you can't, just watch the recording.
It'll be on YouTube.
Will I be YouTube famous?
You might be. You might be the next sensation.
Depends on how stupid the things that I say are. So.
You'll have to make a Brooklyn or Harlem Shake.
Yeah, I'll include that in this presentation. Don't worry. It's obviously an altered mental status if somebody's doing that. So.
Yeah.
Did you like my segue there? That's how I got into altered mental status and where we're at is the Harlem Shake. Awesome. All right. When we're anyway, tough audience. I'll be honest. When you can't see faces and you can't hear responses, it's a little hard as a teacher. So, all right, altered mental status. We're going to come across this a lot on ski patrol, usually because of hypoxia or somebody hitting their head, or because somebody has diabetes and they need blood sugar in their bloodstream. But I saw this in just my first year on the patrol, maybe even a half a dozen times, where it was pretty significant that they weren't with it at all. And so we're going to go through what is altered mental status. You need to know AEIOU TIPS, another acronym. Just make a little flashcard so you know all your acronyms. Let's talk a little bit about diabetes. We're going to list the signs and symptoms and demonstrate how to treat these conditions: hypoglycemia, not enough blood sugar; hyperglycemia, too much blood sugar; partial seizures; and generalized seizures. We're going to talk about strokes tonight: ischemic, hemorrhagic, that's a lot, and then TIAs, so those little mini strokes. And then we're going to describe how to assess a patient that has an altered mental status, and then we're going to talk about treatment of a patient that has altered mental status. And by the way, it's going to go back to this, the AEIOU TIPS, depending on what the reason for their altered mental status helps define a little bit how we treat them. But guess what? All of them are going to get treated with high flow O2. Maintain their ABCDs and prepare for transport. All right. There's our topics. Good. All right. Basic anatomy. You've got your brain and the spinal cord as part of the central nervous system. The brain is broken up into 3 sections. The brain stem, which controls basic life functions: swallowing, breathing, cardiovascular system. If that part of the brain is broken for some reason, you're not going to live long. Cerebellum is going to control balance and coordination, and then cerebrum, that's all the prefrontal cortex stuff that we do with all our thinking. Spinal cord connects that central nervous system to the peripheral nervous system. The peripheral nervous system is everything else about the nervous system. So all the nerves that go through your arms, your legs, your body, to your organs, things like that. It's all happening in the central or the peripheral nervous system. Oh shoot! All right, I got to get ready for this part. All right. From one of my favorite movies.
Neither intend them to carry out our practice. Yes?
My rigged audio system didn't work as well as I'd hoped it would. But if you know the movie, you know that scene, and it makes you happy. But it's a good demonstration of the peripheral nervous system and the voluntary and involuntary reflexes of that peripheral nervous system. And I just wanted an excuse to show Young Frankenstein. So really, that was it. Okay, back to anatomy and physiology, endocrine or endosrin? I don't know how to say that. So if you know, please inform me.
Endocrine.
Endocrine, there we go. Endocrine. Perfect. Anyway, it's regulating the amount of glucose that we have in our bodies. Remember, glucose and oxygen are the two of the things that our body needs. There's a number of needs, but those are the two main causes for us having an altered mental status. We're not getting enough O2, or we're not getting enough glucose where we need it. All right, altered mental status can be global or it can be localized. Global, obviously, is going to be the entire body and its systems. Localized is just going to be part of the system. Motor weakness, balance problems, vision loss, speech abnormalities. All these are help give us clues about how best to treat the patient. Here's the AEIOU tips. Your alcohol and acidosis. Alcohol, obviously, if you come up to Ski Apache this weekend, you're going to experience a lot of that. All through the season up at Ski Apache, you'll experience people with altered mental status because of alcohol. Acidosis is you have a problem with the pH in your body. Not something that we can do a whole lot about up at Ski Apache, but we can help keep their airway and breathing happening. Until advanced life support arrives. Epilepsy, that's a disease that has a person go into seizures. So we'll talk about that in a minute. Environment, are they hot? Are they too hot? Are they too cold? Electrolytes, another thing that your body needs in order to function properly. Insulin helps give you how much blood sugar is in your blood, or how much sugar is in your blood. Oxygenation, again, a big reason that we see altered mental status up at Ski Apache. Overdose on either over-the-counter or on recreational drugs. Uremia, you're having kidney failure. Again, nothing that we can do about it up at Ski Apache, but we can get advanced life support to get them to definitive medical care. Trauma. That's the altered mental status that I saw, was people hitting their heads because they're not wearing helmets. Tumors, infections, poisoning, psychiatric problems. Seizures we'll go over, strokes, syncope. We'll go over all those in just a minute.
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
So, in Taos, when I was working there, one of the things when there was a head injury, Patrol would ask them to repeat back 3 things, and then got to the scene of the injury, they'd say, okay, I'm going to give you 3 things to remember, and always a color, object, and a number. And it was always the same thing. I mean, everyone that knew them at all knew it was red car 32. And then they would be asked that. Is that to find those different areas of the system to see if there's damage?
No, we're not using that to find out what the system is. What we're doing is we're trying to establish, are they struggling in their memory? Because depending, those 3 things, the color, the object, and the number, all are stored in different parts of the brain. So if they've hurt this part of the brain, but this part is the part that remembers a number, it'll remember the number even though they do have some sort of mental deficiency happening. So yeah, so at Ski Apache, we give the number 17, red, and, Jeff, help me out. 17, red, and it's a multi-syllable word that I can't think off the top of my head now.
You didn't bump your head, did you?
Yeah.
I hope not.
I usually make it up.
Yeah. Anyway, if you use the color red and the number 17 up on the hill, the people in the patrol room, when they ask, they'll say something like, "Hey, did they give you a number to remember out there?" And they'll be like, "Oh yeah, it was the number 17." Or they'll say, "What number?" And then
if you're going to name, what name would it be?
A name?
Yeah.
I don't think I've ever used a name before. What name do you use?
Mini Dole.
Oh, yes. Remember that for your test. Mini Dole. Yeah, so that's a good question. You don't use those three things to identify where the injury is. You use those three things to identify if there is an injury. Does that make sense?
Total sense. And do most patrols try to use the same thing so that if they're not in the clinic, that the people in the clinic can know what it is?
We do. We try to make that a universal thing that we share. So again, the only number we give to patients is the number 17 up on the hill, so that if for some reason I did that assessment up on the hill and I gave them that number, and then for some reason I can't make it back into the patrol room to conclude the assessment, they don't have to look for me and be like, "Oh, Jason, what number did you give him?" It's always the same number. So yeah.
Great. Thanks.
Cool. Good question. Great question. All right. When you're doing your primary and secondary assessment, when you're doing that head-to-toe assessment, which is in the secondary assessment, go ahead and look for medical alert tabs. Very helpful. All right, some of the conditions associated with altered mental status. First one we're going to cover is seizures. There's an electrical disturbance that causes the body to start seizing, convulsing. Typically, their awareness is not as high. The body is using a lot of energy. It can be isolated to just part of the body, or it can be what's called a grand mal seizure, so the whole body is seizing. Remember when that happens that they're using a lot of energy, so they're using a lot of O2, they're using a lot of blood sugar in order to seize like that. The seizure usually doesn't last very long, usually 1 to 3 minutes. If a seizure is lasting as long as 10 minutes or more, you have an even more emergent situation on your hands, because the body can only put out that much energy for so long before the body's going to shut down. When it comes, I can't remember if I have this now or later, so I'll just say it now and skip it later if it's there. If you come upon a patient who is seizing, don't put anything in their mouth. The only thing that you're going to do is help protect their airway, make sure that their airway is being maintained. Don't try to restrain them. Just keep everybody and everything away from them so they don't hurt themselves. Okay, this is the biggest thing that we can provide to somebody who's having a seizure. If somebody has multiple seizures in a row before they're able to recover from them, you have the same problem as if somebody's having a long seizure. Seizure epilepticus, I think is what it's called. When they have multiple seizures, extended seizures in a row, same problem. The body is not going to be able to sustain that for very long. So there you go, partial generalized seizures. Oh, before we go to diabetes, any questions that you have about seizures? What they are, why they happen, and what we do when they happen.
He's the Emperor of Rome.
Ah, come on. The bird should totally be squawking at that, by the way. All right. Let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is essentially your body's inability to regulate a blood sugar level. Glucose level is too high or too low. Normally your body does an amazing job at balancing this for extended periods of time, days even without more intake. Your body has the ability to regulate its glucose level. A diabetic can't do that, and there's a number of different types of diabetes. The first type is type 1 diabetes. And you see in the upper left-hand corner there, you see what appears to be a younger woman there with some patches on there. One of the characteristics of a type 1 diabetic person is that it's an autoimmune disorder, typically diagnosed during the early years of a person's life and can be regulated with an insulin pump. And so the pump does the job of regulating the person's glucose. It's also, at most, it's like 5% of the diabetic population is type 1.
Jason, this is Amy. I actually saw one of these about a month ago. I was teaching a class on base, and the woman's monitor went off. She actually carries it on her phone so she could see. It was, and so she showed it to us. It was actually that A device that you see was actually placed underneath the skin. So if you, and it just right in that region. So if you ever see one and that person has a square patch underneath their skin, that's probably what that pump is.
Yeah. Yeah, and one of our patrollers actually uses one of those pumps. And so if she's ever up there while we're having a class, I'll have her show it to you. So you can see what that looks like in case you come across a patient that has one of those. And hopefully you'll get that piece of information in the patient history, or when you're doing your head-to-toe assessment, you'll find it, and that'll help give you a clue why a patient might have an altered mental status. When you're talking about altered mental status, I think I'll talk about this a little bit later, but that's okay, is make sure you get that patient history as fast as possible from anybody that can give you some patient history. Because when it comes to altered mental status, patient history is going to make all the difference in the world for helping figure out why that person's struggling. All right, back to diabetes. The type 2 diabetes is increased incidence in people that are obese, typically diagnosed a little bit older. People may be genetically predisposed to having type 2 diabetes. And type 2 diabetes essentially is that the cells inside the body are resistant to the action of the insulin. The insulin tells your body to start moving that sugar to muscles and hearts and things like that that need that blood sugar. It's the body's way of getting that blood sugar metabolized and out of the system. And the cells in a person with type 2 diabetes is resistant to that work. You can control type 2 diabetes with weight loss, exercise, and then oral hypoglycemic medication. The other type of diabetes, as you can see from the one with a nice big round belly, is gestational diabetes and develops only during pregnancy and typically resolves itself after pregnancy. But if you have a pregnant patient, make sure that you are at least aware of the possibility for gestational diabetes. And then there's other types of diabetes, genetic defects in insulin production, genetic defects in the action of the insulin, drugs, chemical effects that have chemical effects on insulin, hormone-related disorders, yada, yada, yada. But that's pretty rare. All right, when it comes to diabetes, two main things to remember are this. Hypoglycemia. Hypo is the blood sugar is too low, all right? Either the patient took too much diabetic medicine or did not eat adequately before they start exerting themselves, okay? So up at, when people are skiing, a couple of things, they're using more, their body's using more energy because they're up at elevation. Their body's using more energy because they're doing a physical activity. So even a person with experience that is experienced in managing their diabetes well can get thrown off pretty quick at that elevation at a high exertion rate. And so you'll see that happen a lot with people coming in and just being out of whack because they're spending more blood sugar than they're taking in, and their body can't regulate that for themselves. And you'll see the signs and symptoms there. Again, all signs and symptoms that point towards altered mental status. And it's amazing because they'll resolve pretty quickly. once you give them some glucose, sugar.
Can I jump in with one thing?
Go ahead.
Just a tip for memorizing words, because there's a number that we've used a few times tonight, and you guys see them 100 times. Anything that you see that's hypo is too little, hyper is too much, and then you have tachy is fast, and Brady is slow. You'll see those quite a bit. And the other one is anything with PN usually means air, like pneumatics, pneumonia, and then you have PNEA means breathing. So apnea is like apnea, which is lack of breathing. You have dis means abnormal when it's attached to anything. So I don't know if I said that too fast for you to get all those, but those if you can remember those prefixes, they'll get you through about a quarter of the test. So anyway, sorry.
Yeah, no problem. All right. Yeah, that's part of that chapter 6 that Jamie was talking about. If you can kind of hold on to that basic vocabulary, the rest of the book is pretty easy because you're just putting those little pieces of the notes together into a nice symphony of patient care. That'll make the internet famous. I'm sure of it. All right. Hyperglycemia, like Jeff was saying, hyper, too much. And so this is what happens when somebody forgets to take the diabetic medication. Polyuria, they're peeing too much. Polydipsia, they're thirsty. The dry mouth, fatigue. Polydipsia, actually, I'm not sure if that's thirsty. Drinking too much water, maybe? I can't remember. Anyway, the late signs and symptoms, which we usually won't see, are nausea, vomiting, abdominal pain, altered mental status, coma, brain injury, and death. And the reason we don't typically see this in the outdoor environment is because this is a process that happens over an extended period of time. So at most, what we might find is somebody who didn't recognize these symptoms in themselves, and we're sending them to the doctor to confirm that they may be diabetic. And so again, pretty rare though for us to experience this in the outdoor care environment. We're much more going to see things like hypoglycemia in our environment.
And polydipsia does mean increased thirst.
Okay, sweet. I didn't write it down when I was going off the top of my head, so that's always good to know that that's still there. Thanks. All right. Diabetes, hyperglycemia. Any questions, comments, or concerns? Okay. Strokes. The most stroke essentially is some impairment to blood flow in the area of the brain. Okay, and you can have 3 different types of stroke. Ischemic is the most common. Usually an embolism, an obstruction, works its way into the brain and stops blood flow to a part of the brain, and that part of the brain stops functioning properly. And if it is prolonged, it eventually dies, and that's where you get permanent damage from a stroke. Hemorrhagic stroke is where a vessel in the brain bursts and bleeds out and causes pressure then on that side, on that part of the brain. There's a whole section in the book that we're talking about head injuries, head trauma, that goes more in depth about the type of head trauma that you can have with a hemorrhagic stroke. And then you have TIAs, which are temporary interruptions in the blood flow. So a blood clot gets in there, resolves itself, so you might see the signs and symptoms of a stroke, but there's no permanent damage done. But the thing with the TIAs is that they are good indicators that a larger stroke is getting ready to happen, because that means there's an embolism present somewhere, and it's just a matter of time before it actually causes permanent damage. So it's a good early warning sign for folks. All right. Any questions on stroke before we get into patient assessment? Good. All right, when it comes to patient assessment, Just like Jamie was saying, I think that's chapter 7. That's going to be really important. In fact, if anybody wants to practice their patient assessments and just going through it bit by bit, I'll be up at Ski Apache all weekend long. I think Van was going to be up there as well. There's probably a number of us that are instructors that if you just want to practice doing patient assessments while volunteering up there, feel free. Let's just start getting practices on patient assessment. Jamie's going to go into more in depth on that on the 3rd. But if you've got something that you're comfortable using out of the book, let's go ahead and have you start practicing that, and then Jamie will refine that on the 3rd for us. But in all these, you're going to practice patient assessment with altered mental status. You're going to make sure that the scene is safe, that you've got body substance isolation, BSI or PPEs. You're going to make sure that you're safe and the patient is safe, and you're going to monitor their airway, their breathing, their circulation. With the altered mental status, you're going to identify that there's a problem with the nervous system, a disability of some sort. And so now we have to start figuring out what we're going to do about that. Oops, there's all that stuff. We're going to move into the secondary assessment, which is going to be patient history, which is going to be everything else that you're going to find out as soon as possible. Yep. Jeff just texted out there that assessment is the most important skill and the most common failure on the test. And yes, that is it's the most difficult thing that we do, because in the assessment is where you're putting everything together, and you have to do it in a systematic, organized way. It just takes a lot of practice. When it comes to patient assessment, hypoxia and hypoglycemia are the 2 most common causes of altered mental status. Hypoxia, not getting enough oxygen. Hypoglycemia, not getting enough blood sugar to the important parts of the body, like the brain. All right. With all of these, no matter if they have altered mental status, we're going to initiate transport. We're going to initiate the emergency medical system. We're going to ask an ambulance to come up to us, or if it's really severe, we're going to ask a helicopter if possible. Somebody asked about having a helicopter come up, or Jamie had commented about how expensive that is. Have no fear. If you think that a helicopter is necessary, you go ahead and initiate the helicopter. You will have people backing you up, confirming whether or not a helicopter is necessary. And if it's not necessary, we can always send the helicopter back to its base. So don't worry about that. You'll have backup for that. But with all these altered mental status situations, providing high flow O2 and initiating transport are the 2 biggest things that we can provide as ski patrollers. All right, there's all that. Oops. I want to go on the primary assessment. The main tool you're going to use when it comes to D, when it comes to altered mental status or deficiencies or whatever you want to call them in the neurological system, is AVPU. Are they alert? Are they alert to verbal stimuli, painful stimuli, or are they unalert? That's kind of your baseline. But we also, I'd encourage you to go ahead and use the Glasgow Coma Scale, because that's going to help monitor changes while that patient is in our care. Again, hypoxia and hypoglycemia are 2 most commonly seen reasons for ANS. All right, monitor ABCDs, apply high flow O2, give sugar to a diabetic that is awake. If you hear diabetes, go ahead and give them sugar if they're awake. If you give them sugar and they're hyperglycemic, it doesn't matter. It's not going to hurt them. If they have some other issue, it's not going to hurt them. But if they are hypoglycemic and you give them sugar, it's going to help them. So if you hear diabetes, insulin, any of those key words, and they have an altered mental status, give them sugar, see if it helps. Always with altered mental status, unless you saw why they have an altered mental status or why they're unresponsive, assume that they have a spinal injury until you can prove otherwise. We have no protocols at Ski Apache for doing anything. There's no in-between. Either we're not protecting the spine or we're protecting the whole spine head to toe. And so, so if you come across somebody with an altered mental status, you have to put them into a C-collar and backboard unless you know for sure that they did not get that way because of a trauma, or that in their fall they didn't traumatize their spine. And then activate EMS. All right, real quick, you can come across patients that are uncooperative or violent. We do not restrain them unless absolutely positively necessary, because we could cause more harm than good. We just have to be patient and do our best with them while keeping ourselves safe, by the way, and other patients and other customers. Chapter summary: high flow O2 baby, load and go, know your AEIOU tips, and activate EMS. Sugar for diabetics: treat all AMS with spinal precautions unless proven otherwise. And remember, seizures are self-limiting, just prevent them from harm. Questions, comments, concerns about that? We're going to go through substance abuse and poisoning pretty quick because there's nothing I'm going to share with you that's not in your book about substance abuse and poisoning. So the biggest help that you can provide is asking for clarifications on this chapter, and we'll finish up here in about 8 minutes. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Nope.
Cool. All right. Last chapter for the night. Well done, everybody. We're almost there. All right. We're just going to talk a little bit about how the blood or how substances enter the body, what happens once they're in the body, what different types of substances are, the most abused substances, and then proper care for the patient that has a substance entering the system that's causing problems. Okay. That's what we're going to cover. All right. Here's what happens. A substance of some nature, whether it's a poison, a toxin, a drug, or something else, has to go into the body in some way, shape, or form. And it's either ingested, inhaled, given transdermally, so a needle through, or not a needle, but through the skin, and then injection, which means that it actually pumps into the bloodstream through a needle. And so you can see it's a psychedelic, absorption of inhaled substances. That's right, folks. Going to be a lot of that this weekend at the Ski Apache. I can promise you that. Because there's a music, right? Everybody? Okay.
It's all medical.
All right. Yeah, it's all medical, I'm sure. All right, the physiological actions that are happening is once it's absorbed into the body, it has to be distributed, and it's distributed fairly quickly because the bloodstream usually does that distribution. Then it has to be metabolized. It has to be broken down in the body. When you drink too much alcohol, it goes through your body, and then your liver has to do the hard work of getting it out of your body through elimination, purging those substances. That's physiological absence thing that's going on. Substance abuse is the intentional misuse resulting in impairment or distress. I'm going to drink a fifth of vodka. That would be substance abuse. Yeah, I'm pretty sure a fifth would put me on my ass. So. All right, common substances that lead to negative effects. Tylenol, acetaminophen is a big one. Had one of my congregation members, their granddaughter, did the whole suicide thing. It wasn't really a suicide; it was kind of a call for help. Unfortunately, she decided to do that with Tylenol PM. So the PM part of it wasn't going to damage her body hardly at all, but she damaged her liver to the point where only a third of it functioned anymore. And so what started as a cry for help became a serious medical emergency, Aspirin also problematic. Acids, bases, alcohol, depressants, sedatives. You have a whole list of them in your book. Go through each of those and just know what they are. Know the basic problems that they cause. And then also with that, go into the third section, which is know how we counteract those. Okay? Patient assessment. Again, scene size up. Know the hazards. When you're dealing with somebody who has a substance, who has a poison or toxin or something that's entering their body or causing them problems, remember that that same substance can influence and affect you if you're not careful. So, for instance, carbon monoxide. Make sure that you keep yourself safe, remove the patient from the problem. Monitor their airway, breathing, circulation, and any disabilities, and treat for those. Reassess frequently. Sample, look for symptoms. Are they allergic to anything? Taking medication? I had a patient this last year who had an injury to his shoulder, and when he first came in, his heart rate was high, so I put him on O2. And the problem was he was in there forever, and his heart rate was still high. He wasn't breathing heavy anymore. There was no reason for his heart rate to be high that I found. And when on the hill, I'd asked him, do you take any medications? And he said, the only thing he said was a beta blocker, right? So his heart rate should be lower. But then when we got in the patrol room, I said, well, anything like over the counter? And he said, oh, well, yeah, I'm taking Sudafed. Oh, well, there's an upper. And I'm taking a Ventolin inhaler for my asthma. Oh, well, there's another upper. So all of a sudden I had a good and reasonable explanation for why his heart rate was so high. When you ask for medications, remember you're asking for 4 things. Are they taking any prescriptions, over the counter, herbal or natural medications, or any recreational? A question to ask, you're not the police. They can give you an answer and not suffer persecution or judgment. Some assistance as needed and reduce substance exposure is the big thing. If someone's experiencing negative effects because of a toxin, poison, or substance, limit the exposure they have to that substance. If it's on the skin, brush it off. If it's in their eye or if it's a liquid on their skin, irrigate it out. And if it's air, make sure you move them out from where the air is toxic and apply high flow O2. All right. Jeff, do you remember if we even have charcoal up at the ski patrol? I don't remember having ever seen it. Do you remember if we have charcoal, activated charcoal, even at the patrol room? I don't remember ever seeing it. Okay. Okay. Anyway, I don't remember seeing it, but it's in your book, so you have to know it. And if we have it, you're going to need to know how to use it, because we're going to call 800-222-1222. Remember that number, 1-800-222-1222. That's going to be the number one way that we're going to help counteract poisons and substances that our patients are being negatively impacted by. Chapter summary, personal safety, always first. Reduce exposure of your patient, but not, and make sure that you're not exposing yourself to the same thing that got them down. Anecdotes exist for many of the drugs. 1-800-222-1222 will help you figure that out. And remember, children are especially susceptible to aspirin, acetaminophen, and iron. With children, by the way, the acetaminophen, that usually comes from the case of they're not feeling good. The parents are on vacation with the kids up at Ski Apache, so they load the kid up with a dose of Tylenol, but then they load the kid up also with a dose of Dayquil. Turns out that Dayquil also has acetaminophen in it, so they can inadvertently poison the kids. All right, and we're done. Any questions, comments, concerns, substance abuse, poisonings, things of the like?
Where are these slideshows located?
Jeff?
They are on the Google Drive, so hopefully.
Yeah, I don't see him there. That's why I'm asking.
Be on YouTube. So, let me see. I may be able to take control back and show you. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Here, I'll give you control back here.
I'll flip back. I see your webcam. How do I? Okay. It looks. There we go. Okay, everybody can see my screen?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay. So let me try. I think I had. Here's the Google Drive. I have more folders than you do. I haven't shared everything. Oh, there it goes. So I'm storing everything that's been presented, or that so I put these lectures out here, or I should have, this week. So you can come here and see the slideshows if you want in the lectures folder. And then let me see if I can demo YouTube. I have to find it. Hopefully that's not making you dizzy. So if I go to YouTube and I go search, and I think I just searched on Ski Apache OEC. No, let's try Ski Apache OEC channel. Huh. I'm getting a whole lot of other people's videos.
Do the Ski Apache.
I think there's a channels tab.
Oh, where's the channels tab? This one?
Yeah, there's a channels tab somewhere. I don't see it on there, but.
Oh, here we go. Well, see, I already have it favorited.
Right on yours.
Wait, why does it say no videos?
Yeah, that's what I was getting. But you have to go to, gosh, I had a hard time. It took me a while to navigate it, but I did find them.
All the videos are.
I think I searched for it in Google, and, not inside of YouTube, but just searched Ski Apache OEC YouTube channel, and it took me right there. Yeah. And then just hit the subscribe button, and it will, you'll be able to see it. I'm going to have to troubleshoot and find out what happened to my videos. Oh, wait.
You just have to look on our playlist, Jeff, and that's where there are.
Right, there you go.
See, playlists are just individual videos, but the recordings will be under the videos tab. These are just things.
Channels tab.
Yeah, they're just extra videos that I found. So if you want to see, impaled object, how to use a SAM split, we haven't gotten there yet, but as I'm finding them, I'm putting them here, and then I'll get instructors to anything that we present. We'll drop into this collection.
Is there any way you could sort of say, hey, look at look at these 3 or 4 before the next session? There's a lot of content on there, and I wouldn't know which ones to sort of look at that would be relevant to what we're going to be studying.
Yep. So for now, and I'll see if I can't put some more organization around it. But for now, like say, we went over suction tonight, and if you wanted to go back and review it, well, we have oxygen. So, I would go, okay, let's see if there's anything in here on suction, and you'd have it here.
Were the numbers associated with it, is that correlate to a chapter? It's 05, OC on oxygen?
They're just, at this point, they're just random.
Okay. So just keep looking and try to find them.
Yep, I will put
I got to figure out why they're not there, but I've been trying to upload our lectures to this part here, to the videos, and somehow they got taken down or deleted or something. But I'll troubleshoot that tonight, and I'll get them back up there.
Yeah, could you go back to the drive, because I don't think yours loaded up all the slides inside the folder you were showing either.
Okay. So yeah, I noticed that I was trying to help Jamie get her slides started tonight. So right now, I believe
it only has the 2 sets of slides from last week right now.
Right. And so I'll get Jamie's uploaded. I had them there, and I don't know if I deleted them or I did something, but I'll get them back there, and I'll get Jason's up there. Or Jason, if you can just load them directly.
Yeah, it looks like mine are up there. Mine's the NSP OEC-24, Chapter 9, Airway Management.
Oh, okay.
That should be all the slides for all 4 chapters.
Oh, okay. There we go.
I just called it Session 3-2. 2017-05-24.
Okay. I'll rename it.
Okay.
So that'll help. So we'll get them. We'll get some better organization on there. And anyway, so I'll try to have them up as soon as I get the slides from the instructor. I'll post them here so that you can see them a couple of days in advance. I haven't been, I could post all of them. Well, problem is a lot of the instructors for later on are still working on their slides. I have the entire book, and we could put them here, but, you really don't want to read ahead too much. Read ahead the next session, maybe a couple of sessions, but more than that, and you'll get lost.
One of the things that I did last year when I was studying for this so that I knew it cold is I read through the book, as best as I could, and I would answer all the questions in the chapters, all the exercises in the chapters, and I would get it just as far as I could through it, and it just takes you a lot of time. Before every class, I would reread those chapters that we were going to do in that class, and I would answer homework questions. I think, Jeff, they have access to test questions for each chapter.
Yep.
And I would do those test questions before I took the class, and then by the time we did like we did tonight, it was the 3rd time I had heard the content from those chapters. So by the time I was hitting the instruction, I was getting from the instructor a 3rd go through each of those chapters. And then before the test, because there was a gap, I went through the book one more time.
Yep. If you go to the candidate resources folder, I have the lectures there. Maybe that's why I couldn't find them. But anyway, then we've got skill guides, which are going to be as we go through, and I'll keep posting these as we do new chapters. But so if you want to see the skills for, let's see what this one is. For Chapter 5, there's not that many skills, so you got multi-person ground lift. See how standard precautions, that's your BSI, that's a CPI. Patient has a spinal injury, do not use this technique. That's a CPI, so if you lift somebody with a spinal technique, you would fail, so on. So anyway, that's your skill guide. Shows you how you'll be graded on it. And then you go to quizzes, was it quizzes? Yeah, here it is. So as we're going through each chapter, I'm posting the test bank for that chapter. So we've already got 3 and 5 in here, and then I'll post other ones as we do the. I'll try to get them ahead if you want to do the quizzes ahead of time. And so I think I mentioned earlier these chapter by chapter test banks. They are every question in the test bank. So if you read through all of them, or better yet, use them as a test, you cover up the answers and then take them away later, you will see every question possible for the written exam.
Mm.
And then if you look, see, it gives you the correct answer, but it also gives you the objective and the page in the book. So I think that's about it for those. This we used quite a bit tonight. This just puts it in one location. It's all of your vital signs. I may not have put temperature on there, but I think hopefully everybody knows 98.6. These are your scenario procedures. So those you want to memorize. And then the other thing is just do mynspkit.com because all the vocabulary is there and everything else. I think I left YouTube on.
Yeah, we're meeting this weekend up at the actual mountain, right?
I believe it's next. Well, you're certainly welcome to go this weekend. Next weekend is our formal session, June 3rd.
Okay.
And June 3rd will be your chance to take CPR out there for pretty low cost. We just ask that you pay for your but certainly go if you have time. Go out this weekend and go out every weekend because you'll definitely need the practice.
June 3rd. What time do we start?
I think we talked about it last session, and I think the consensus was we'll try to run 10 to 2. That way you don't have to get up outrageously early. And, if 4 hours is enough, great. If you want to go longer, I'm sure we could stay longer, but the hill closes at 4, so.
Actually, in the summertime, it closes, I want to say it's 5:30 or 6, somewhere late.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, in the summertime, it stays open pretty late.
And is there a place I can go to find sort of a list of things I should maybe bring with me?
To the hill?
Yep. Besides my body and my checkbook.
Yeah, at this point, you don't need to bring that much. Eventually, I would even say wait until you pass OEC, but certainly if you want to practice skills at home, some things that I would practice with, you're going to need to get really good at taking vitals. So you can find cheap ones on Amazon. I would get called a sphygmomanometer, a blood pressure cuff, and a stethoscope. So you can practice getting lung sounds and getting blood pressures. Getting pulses are pretty easy. Just have a watch. And no matter what, you always want a good battery-powered, like I prefer an analog watch because you don't have to remember where you started and add 30 to it. You just go across the dial, and that's the number you're going to stop at because you're going to use that to take pulses all the time. We'll supply you with gloves. You shouldn't need those. You might want to go out and find some old sheets that you can tear up, and then we can make cravats to use. And, so if you can get 5 or 6 for yourself out of, an old set of sheets, then when they're made out of sheets, they'll last forever. You can use them over and over, whereas the ones on the hill, they tend to last once, maybe twice, and then they're done.
I have
so that'll help. Yeah. Yeah, if you don't go rip up good sheets. We've got options. But I mean, usually you can find something laying around, and then other than that, at some point you'll want to buy. Now this, don't quote me, but I believe the Hills policy is that every new patroller. So you buy your vest and you stock your vest, and then after that, anything that you use up the patrol will replace.
There is Jeff
Yeah.
So the patrol will provide the medical supplies,
Okay.
except trauma shears, SAM splints, and face masks. You have to buy those at cost. They're not very expensive. I think it's like a total of $20 for all 3.
Yeah.
And you can check out a vest every day that you're patrolling. First come, first serve. And there's a number of black vests up there to check out, and I think there's even a few red vests But for instance, if you know that you're going to pursue being an alpine patroller, which is wearing the red vest, you can just check out a black vest every day that you patrol. Or you can buy your own. Either way, it doesn't matter.
Yep.
Okay. Is there, where do you buy the black vest at? Or do you get them from? Do y'all sell them?
Is mountainuniforms.com.
But you won't need that until ski season.
Yeah.
So don't worry about having that over the summer here as we're training. We'll have everything that you need to practice up on the hill.
Gotcha.
And we'll buy your first set of crosses. That's like your gift at graduation.
Nice.
Speaking of that, Jeff, do you know if we got inputted in the Ski Apache Ski Patrol thing so that we can enroll in the class on NSP's website?
I do not, but I'll tell you what, I'll email everybody and I'll include Jeff Roberts, and let's just all stay on him about getting everybody approved.
I'm almost certain Jeff will be up there this weekend, so we can hound him then.
Yep.
Okay.
I think so. There's some accessories, I guess you could say, that I choose to carry. Other people do. I carry I carry one nasopharyngeal airway because I had a patient once that it was on a mountain bike. His fork separated, and he came down, not on the wheel but on the bare forks, and it whipped him face first into the ground, and the only thing we could get into him was a NPA. So ever since then, I've carried one in my pack. And the good thing about an NPA is you can cut it, so you really only need one. And I do carry. I've never used it, thank God, but I carry an OPA kit. And those the patrol won't supply, but you can get them pretty cheap on Amazon. I don't carry a stethoscope, but I know there are patrollers that do. And I do carry my own pulse ox. I've found them like less than $20 on Amazon, and I don't lend it out anymore, but I will put it on a patient, and then I get pretty militant about going, hey, that's my pulse ox, give it back. Because it'll definitely walk away. People like it, and then it ends up belonging to the patrol. But it's pretty common if you're out on the hill a lot, you'll come across somebody, and it's just an easy thing to do when you're alone. You throw that on their finger and tell them stick it in their sleeve or inside their jacket. Keep their hand warm, and then. While you're getting sample and getting all the other things, getting stuff set up, you can be taking their pulse without having to sit and monitor it. I like it. I mean, not everybody does. And then every so often, it's crowded in the patrol room, and every pulse ox is used up, so I'll just take the one off my vest and do it. So things like that they won't cover, but I wouldn't run out and just buy them right away. Wait until you get a little time up at the hill and figure out kind of what you're going to want and have, that kind of stuff.
In your first day up there as a patroller during the season, you'll go through an orientation with Susie, and in that orientation, part of that orientation packet is a whole list of the things that we like to see you keep on your vest, bare minimum. And you can add, like Jeff was saying, you can add lots of stuff to it. But as a basic rule, these are the things, that list contains the things that we want to see you carry with you up on the hill, or that we'd expect you to carry with you up on the hill.
Yep.
And that'll all be part of your orientation, and part of your orientation will be packing your vest and other gear. So don't worry too much about it now. But
actually, it's scheduled for October 1st. And so what we're going to Yep. We'll do, because it was getting delayed or not in and all that. The other thing that I want them to learn at orientation is dispatching, because we never got around to showing Van how to dispatch, and
she's actually pretty good at it, and heck, we could have had her the whole season. I don't think we got her till spring break. So, that's one thing. But the candidates will all watch the chairlift evac. So, and then next year, if you want, you're welcome to participate in it. We'll evac you. We'll do all that. So, should be fun. I think that's about it. But it's actually, in terms of what you need in your vest, it's not a whole lot. I now, after our person that went out of bounds, I now carry a lighter in my vest. And actually also because I got left at chair 6 for a whole day and I couldn't start a fire. So, the hill was just busy. I was watching chair 6 and nobody could rotate in and relieve me. So I was there from 10 o'clock till 4 o'clock and freezing cold. It was one of the coldest days of the year, and I had nothing to start I had wood, but I had nothing to start a fire with. So I was in a bad mood. So I now have a lighter, and I may carry kindling.
That's funny.
So, yeah, actually I think there's kindling up there at the top of 6. But so anyway, there's that. But one other thing you might think about putting in there is glow sticks. We had a evacuation last year that the guy went out of bounds at like 3:30, just before sweep, and I think they finally sent all the volunteer patrollers home at 11 o'clock, and all the pros stayed until I think 2 or 3. And from what I heard, I think he was actually extricated about 6 a.m. And we found out from that experience that glow sticks work really well at guiding your way through the snow. So,
wow.
Just in case you find yourself out on the bike trail after dark looking for some idiot. So, anyway, I think that's it, unless you guys want to stay longer. Somebody already left.
Thank you, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, nothing. There won't be a session this Saturday. You got the weekend off, and then unless you want to go out to the hill and practice, and then we'll be back next Wednesday, and then I think the following Saturday is our big. That's the one session you don't want to miss. So
we'll be there.
Okay. Well, we'll see you next Wednesday.
Guys.
Okay.
Take care.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night. Thank you, guys.